So how are you guys? I am back again with a very fun and exciting new video, which is, what if Naruto joined Hanabi's Genin team? Before video started, do like, share and subscribe to the channel and comment down your favorite part. Your one like and one subscribe motivate me to upload more fanfic like these for you all, so without any waste of time now let's start the fanfic. Genin of the Leaf. Okay, congratulations all of you who have passed the test, you are now Genin of the Hidden Leaf. You will all meet here tomorrow to receive your team assignments. Those of you who failed will have a short break and then resume your schooling and try again next year. You are all dismissed. So went Iruka's end of the year speech. After the attack on the Hidden Leaf village, Iruka and the other teachers had been sent on missions and the school was closed down. This had only been the second group of students to graduate in 3 years. Thought Iruka as he looked over the list of students. Only 8 students passed, and one of them is a year younger than the others in her class. I will have to speak to the Hokage to determine what to do about the teams, Iruka thought as he walked toward the Hokage's tower. Iruka looked at the top of her file as he walked, even though he knew them all already. Hyuga, Hanabi, age 10. Second daughter of Hiyashi Hyuga and possible heir apparent of the Hyuga clan. While Hanabi was not the youngest person to graduate early, they were still rare cases. Even Neji, the Hyuga family's greatest prodigy, did not graduate early. But he was entered late in the normal custom of the branch families. Hanabi was also very arrogant, as is common in many of the noble houses. Just like Sasuke, thought Iruka darkly. He knew that no Hyuga would betray the leaf and that Sasuke was a special case, and hurried onto the tower. As Iruka walked towards the tower, he saw Naruto walking back into the town from one of the training fields. His arms were hanging around Kakashi and Yamato, half walking, half being carried. He decided to see what had happened this time and went to talk to his former pupil. Naruto, what did you do this time? Iruka said as he approached the young boy. His cloths were ripped and he looked as if he had been thrown around. Hi Iruka-sensei, said Naruto, cheerful even though he was as exhausted as he looked. I've been training with Kakashi-sensei and Captain Yamato so I could create a new jutsu. I haven't finished it yet, but when it's done it's gonna be a super rank S jutsu. Awesome, huh? A jutsu that powerful, thought Iruka, would be amazing, but Naruto would never have the patience to complete it. What kind of training have you been doing? You look like you've thrown around all day. I was learning to manipulate my chakra's nature, answered Naruto. If he had one flaw, which he truly had many, it was that Naruto would tell you anything without a second thought. I've already finished that part though, and I'm trying to add the nature to my Rasengan. Kakashi now spoke up in his usual calm and emotionless voice. Naruto, the point of developing jutsu is not to tell others about it. You will just take away from its effectiveness in battle if others already know about it. Ah, but it's only Iruka-sensei, complained Naruto as Kakashi and Yamato dragged Naruto on towards his small house. When Iruka came to the Hokage's tower, the office was not very busy and he was admitted to the Hokage's office soon after arrival. As he entered, he saw that the Hokage's desk where she sat was covered in papers. As he came closer, the young woman, who appeared to be in her 20s, let out a moan followed by a curse, after which saying, I can't believe I lost again. Apparently Tsunade was gambling again and hadn't seen him enter. When he made a small cough, she looked up and greeted Iruka with a guilty smile. Welcome Iruka, what is this about? I'm very busy today. I have the list of new Genin Hokage-sama. Unfortunately there has been a slight problem. Only 8 students graduated this year, leaving one team short one member. Tsunade took the profiles from him and looked through them. After reading each file, she put them down and looked at Iruka. What do you believe should be done about this? We obviously cannot send 2 students back to the academy when they have already passed, and we definitely cannot let a student pass who has not earned it. Iruka thought back on his day in the classroom giving the final test. None who failed would be able to pass the test for a little while yet. Then a thought came to him. Hokage-sama, it is to my understanding that Naruto Uzumaki is still a Genin and that Hype team has all either become Chunin or left. Would it not be appropriate to place him on a Genin team so that he can take the Chunin exams? It would solve our problem as well as satisfy the elders, since he would be doing low-ranked missions, said Tsunade, but I am reluctant to do so. It would prevent him from looking for Sasuke. Also, I would have to assign Captain Yamato as the group leader. But it must be done, I guess. Iruka did understand that he would be upset but thought that Naruto would like to become a chunin. Something else bothered him now however. Hokage-sama, I did not know that the elders had a problem with Naruto. Yes, she responded, they are the reason that Captain Yamato had been taken off active duty as a Anbu. He is, whether Naruto relishes it or not, a bodyguard to help protect him. But enough of this, I shall arrange the rest due to your data. If there is nothing more you are dismissed Iruka, please ask Sakura and Shizune to come into my office. As Iruka left, Tsunade looked down at the files spread over her lottery tickets. She would have to spread them into groups and assign them to the Junin who were available and figure who would have to deal with Naruto. But who can I hate that much to do that to, she thought evilly. Perhaps she could find some way to pass it off. When her two apprentices entered, she bid them close the door and explained to them what was to happen. When she had finished, Sakura finally said, but Tsunade-sensei, then Naruto won't be able to help us look for Sas. Enough, Sakura, said Tsunade, cutting her off. I know how much it means to both you and Naruto to search for Sasuke, but you know how the elders have been. If I do this, it will satisfy them for the time being. Besides, it's not like you will never see Naruto, and eventually the new group that he will be with will be able to help with missions and finding Sasuke. I have no doubt that Naruto would be able to turn them to his cause. Now Sakura, go find Captain Yamato and Naruto and tell them to come to my office. When Sakura left, Shizune finally broke her quiet as well. I believe you are doing the right thing, Tsunade. We cannot let Naruto be placed in danger. I hope you are right. She onward, go and inform the elders of my decision and come back to me to pick out which of the Junin will lead the other two teams of Genin. Could you not place Kakashi in charge of one of the groups now that Team 7 is no more? Asked the apprentice. No, Team 7 is to function without Naruto in order to gather information on Sasuke and Orochimaru. But let us save this for later. After Shizune left, Tsunade looked at the last of her tickets on the desk. It was a winning number. Omens come in many different forms. Some in change in luck, and sometimes something will simple stick out in your mind. Omens also come in much more complex forms such as dreams. When Hanabi woke up, she couldn't tell whether the night before was a dream or something more. She sat up in her bed and looked at her hands, thinking upon the dream. The first thing she remembered was walking in a great gorge, and at the mouth she could see large rocks that looked sharp as a sword. As she looked towards the mouth, she felt a great maelstrom build within her as it grew stronger. Her vision began to blur. Finally she felt it eject from her and her vision cleared. She saw the power that had built within her pull against itself. As it pulled, it became more elongated. The opposite sides that pulled out the furthest began to take forms. One side to that of a human's face with a cross in the middle with long hair and soon after wings. The other side was a human face, and as the wings on the former sprouted, tails began to bound out of this figure too. As the tails came, the face became more and more pointed. Then she looked down upon herself and saw for the first time that she herself was stretching. When she pulled to the one side, the form with the wings began to recede. When she moved the other, the pointed face began to recede. She struggled and finally pulled both her hands to her face, and the power that had come from her came back in. Now she looked into her hand and saw two marks form on her hands as if being branded. On the left was that which she knew as the Sharingan, and the other a great spiral. The pain of the burning began to spread through her whole body and began to grow even hotter, and the area that it covered become smaller. As it grew even hotter, she woke sweating, her hands throbbing and silent tears streaming down her face. For a while she stared at her hands. What was it, she thought, no longer seeing her hands. After a while longer she got up from her bed and dressed, her mind wandering towards what the day would hold for her. She was to find out which fools from the academy she would be teamed with. When she finished dressing, she walked through the Hyuga manor towards the main hall where her cousin, Neji, was waiting. As she entered, Neji turned to her and bowed down on one knee to her. "Cousin, I wished to have a word with you before you left to meet your team," said Neji. He was one of the few people whom she truly respected. She could not remember him ever losing even when he was within an inch of his life. "I wished to tell you that your teammates are more than tools. They are people who you must put your utmost trust in." Hanabi let a small laugh loose before walking to the door. Before she left to go to the academy, she said with the laugh still half on her voice, "You, Neji, should know better than to say something like that. You who is the strongest among our line. Others are simply stepping stones for us to be raised higher. With that she jumped to the top of the stone fence surrounding the manor. Neji watched her go, a frown on his face. As she walked into the classroom, Hanabi looked on the other students. She had never made any effort to become friendly with them. While they gathered to play childish games, she practiced, making herself stronger. To her they were simply blank faces, two of which would become her tools to use as she saw fit. She sat at the bottom in a row by herself. After a while a boy, she thought his name was Jakin Orishi, came and sat in the same row as her. He was a wit-haired boy with skin amazingly just as white as the hair and bright red eyes. After a few silent moments between the two, and as other students began to group up and have conversations on the higher platforms, he decided to try and start a conversation. "You're Hanabi Hyuga, right? I've heard a lot about your clan from my father." No response at all. The boy, a year older than her, decided to ask a friendly question to the girl, her eyes fixed straight ahead. "Is it weird being from a huge family like that?" To this she replied without ever moving her eyes, "No." After this the boy seemed to lose hope and stood up and walked away to sit at a different set of desks. Shortly after, Iruka walked into the classroom and called his students to attention. "Today you enter the ninja world," said Iruka, his voice proud and full of confidence. "While you are ninja, you are merely genin and must be placed under the supervision of Junin instructors who will help guide you in training and in missions you will complete on behalf of the village. You will now be placed into the 3-man teams decided based on your different techniques, strengths and weaknesses by the Hokage herself. First Team 13. Hanabi stopped listening for a while and thought, "Great, I shall be placed on a team with the weakest of these tools." It did not matter, however, she needed no tools for herself to be just as effective, her tools would just be worse for the wear. Iruka called, "In the last team, Team 15, Hanabi Hyuga and Jakin Orishi. You will wait here for your instructors to come and get you." Hanabi heard his voice and for a second she sat there and looked around at those in the small classroom, only 8, then called out at Iruka in a scornful voice, "What do you mean? What of my last team member?" "Hanabi," Iruka answered calmly, "only 8 students passed the final exam this year, but do not worry, you are going to be given an alternative team member in place of the one who would normally be from your class." Iruka then went and waited outside the classroom. Hanabi sat there thinking of what Iruka said. An alternative teammate would be provided. This was no way for the Hokage to treat one of the Hyuga clan. Then her thoughts turned to her other teammate. If I remember correctly, then he was no underachiever yet no genius either. He could become a more useful tool than some here who are given the name of shinobi. The first of the Junin came and took her team, followed by the second. A minute or two passed and the door opened again to let in a blonde-haired boy with blue eyes in orange pants and an orange and black jacket, and around his neck, tied on a string, was a small piece of metal. Hanabi thought she had seen him somewhere before, but she soon dismissed it from her mind. This was obviously not their instructor, so either he was lost or was the new team member. The boy said under his breath, so she could barely heard it, "Never thought I'd be in this rat hole again." And then looked up at the 2 genin, then said in a loud voice, "Hi-ya. You must be the team the Hokage put me on. Captain Yamato is just talking to Iruka-sensei, he'll be in soon." The boy Jakin asked the blonde boy some questions. "Who are you?" A simple enough question which the boy answered with a big grin, "Hehe, I'm Naruto Uzumaki." Next he asked, "You're a genin, right? How long have you been one?" The Naruto's smile fading a little, he answered, "Yay, I've been a genin for 3 years now." Hanabi couldn't help but bring the tool down a little. "Huh, you've been a genin for 3 years and you still think to call yourself a ninja, how pathetic. How much of a failure you must be, and here I thought my luck was going to hold out after getting at least a half-decent tool on my team. Now I see that I have a fool and a tool better discarded lest it cuts the one who wields it." Naruto's smile was now gone. He looked at her eyes and said, just like Neji used to be." And then he went and sat by Jakin. Soon enough Yamato entered the room soon after Hanabi's speech. He was a man dressed in a green jacket that most Junin wore, and on his face was a yellow support that would normally hold a mask on his face during combat. The man himself had short black hair and eyes that seemed drawn into his face. "Well, Team 15, shall we go somewhere more comfortable so we can get acquainted?" After leaving the classroom, the newly formed group walked towards one of the training fields. Yamato had received a briefing on his 2 new students from Iruka and knew there were going to be plenty of yelling on Naruto's part before long. He remembered when he and Naruto were called to the Hokage's office to be informed. "Naruto, Yamato, thank you for getting here so quickly," said Tsunade standing to greet them. Naruto of course couldn't keep his mouth shut. Yay, what did you want to tell us, Grandma? I'm supposed to be training and Sakura-chan made it seem really important. Obviously a little irritated, Tsunade went on. Yes, I know you have been training, but you are the only Genin that doesn't have a 3-man team with other Genin. You see, only 8 students were made Genin this year, so one team is short. We need someone to fill that space. What? You mean you're putting me on a Genin team again? That's ridiculous. Like it or not, Naruto, retorted Tsunade, you are a Genin still and there is no one else available. Naruto, who was clearly not liking this, had crossed his arms and started mumbling under his breath. Tsunade decided to approach this from a new angle. Naruto, you do wish to become a Chunin, right? Naruto put his hands at his side and stared at her and nodded. Well, in order to take the Chunin exams you need a 3-man team consisting of Genin. Think of this as a way to become a Chunin. Oh, alright, but I'm not gonna like it. Captain Yamato, Tsunade went on, you will of course be the team's leader for obvious reasons. Of course, Hokage-sama. Good. Both of you will report to the academy tomorrow to receive your new team. You are dismissed. He knew that this was very irregular. Naruto was at nearly, if not surpassing, the Chunin level. It had to be because of the elders then, they had been bothering her since before he had left his Anbu position. Perhaps she truly did want Naruto to become a Chunin and there was an opening in a new team, but those were just minor things. Her decision had more meaning than what Naruto, and most others, knew. Soon they arrived at a wooded training area, like a smaller, and far less dangerous, version of the Forest of Death. Yamato sat at the base of one of the trees on the outskirts of the field, soon followed by his new team. He would need to get to know them a little first. Okay, now let's introduce ourselves to each other. I'm Captain Yamato, I've been training with Naruto for a little while, and my goal is to see Naruto, and both of you now, through your training. Now each of you, tell us your name, something about you, and one goal of yours. Let's start on the left. The first was the white-haired boy. I'm Jakin Orishi, my entire family moved here from the Lightning Village 5 years ago, and my goal is to make my family's name known one day. Very good. Next, you young lady. Hanabi, who sat in between Naruto and Jakin, let out a sigh, then introduced herself. I'm Hanabi Hyuga, I'm a member of the Hyuga family, and my goal is to inherit the title as head of my clan. She sparked Naruto's interest. Are you related to Hinata-chan and Neji-kun? Yes, she said irritably, I am Neji's cousin and unfortunately Hinata is my sister. Yamato took in her words. I'll have to look into her and the boy a little farther. Then he said to the group, lastly, Naruto. Naruto, who had been looking at Hanabi, turned and looked at Yamato. Right. Said the boy, who had been thinking to himself. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, I'm working on a new jutsu, and my goal is to become the Hokage someday. Hanabi couldn't help herself. How could this fool think to have such a lofty goal? He'll be lucky if he becomes a Chunin after another 3 years. She proceeded to tell Naruto what she thought of this. You must be joking. You've been a Genin for 3 years and you think that you can become Hokage. How delusional do you think the people of the Leaf are? Hearing this, Yamato intervened. Hanabi, no goal is impossible to fulfill. You know that the legendary 3 started out as normal Genin as well. Hanabi just closed her eyes. Whatever. Yamato let a small frown cross his face. Very well, let's continue. A fellow shinobi told me of his method for testing students' abilities. With this he pulled out 2 bells. Naruto, seeing the bell, let out a grin. I remember this test. Hope you can stand up to it, Captain Yamato. Naruto, said Yamato, you will not be participating. What? Why? I already know your strengths and weaknesses. This test will just be for the others. I want you to watch and learn as much as you can of their styles. Oh, okay. Between you and the old woman I'm not going to make any progress. Turning to the other 2 students, Yamato gave his instructions. Once I say start, you will have until sundown to try and get the bells from me. Feel free to use any jutsu you may know. You will have to come at me with your all or you will never get both bells from me. You will need to use every skill a shinobi is supposed to have. He waited a few moments to see them both nod their heads, then, start. Naruto watched as both of the new Genin took of and hid. I wonder if they will actually be able to work together. He doubted it though. That Hanabi is too much like how Neji and Sasuke were. She'll more likely try and use Jakin. Thinking of Sasuke though brought back memories he wished to keep away. Instead he turned his attention to how the two were doing against Yamato. Jakin had been hidden for a minute or two. He hadn't seen Hanabi, but had Yamato in his sight. The man had not been moving, most likely giving a head start. Okay, a head-on attack won't work, only a fool would try and do that against a Genin. If I knew where Hanabi was we could try and team up against him, but she doesn't seem to like teamwork. My only chance is to find her though. He took one more look at Yamato and jumped from tree to tree looking for his new teammate. Eventually he saw her. She was looking at him with the veins around her eyes visible. The Byakugan thought Jakin. What are you doing? Said the young Hyuga with scorn clear on her voice. Are you trying to give my location away? We need to have a plan to get the bells. The girl glared at him for a second, a look of distaste, and then gave a little smile. Very well. Go out there and distract him as best you can, then I'll go in and attack him when you've thrown him off balance. I can handle the rest. Jakin was shocked by her assumption. You just expect me to distract him? You're going to just send me out there against a Genin, are you crazy? Just go, I have a plan and he shouldn't hurt you on purpose, he is our teacher. As you said, we need to work together to get a bell. He had no choice, the girl left no room for question. He went and searched for the best place for him to attack. When he had the spot where Yamato was, he was not surprised to see that he had left. Quickly he scanned the area for any obvious marks and pulled out and held 3 shuriken between his fingers. Captain Yamato was good. Jakin could see 3 tripwire traps and there were sure to be others. If I try and sneak by the traps I would have to go slower and probably be seen. If I go too fast I would most likely set off a trap I don't see. I could try and go around, but by knowing the center is protected he'll watch the sides. I could try and set them off from a distance, it will give away my location, but it could force him to move and give away his position. Jakin decided to try and set the traps he could see. He looked a little longer and saw 3 more traps. He would have to be quick, so he'd put 2 shuriken in each hand and threw one after another. As soon as the first one hit its wire he jumped away to hide. He heard a loud banging as several falling branches fell, followed by the sound of flying kunai and the light and sound of a flash bang. He reached in and grabbed another shuriken and a kunai. He threw the shuriken and it hit its wire, but nothing happened. He took advantage of the failed trap and ran on through. When he made it past he jumped onto a tree and looked around. Yamato still hadn't been seen. Then he felt something on his right hand. He looked down and saw wood growing and attaching to his hand and wrist. Yamato walked out and started talking. Very good, Jakin. You saw my traps and countered them as would have been best. You had to stop and think first, which shows me you have patience, but you saw one trap that didn't do anything and marched on. Yamato was here, so Jakin took the initiative again and pulled against the wood and struck at a thin point with the kunai in his other hand. He broke enough wood that he pulled his hand free and kicked at Yamato with his right leg, cutting Yamato's speech short. He followed the kick through and kicked off against the tree. In mid-air he made 3 hand signs, and when he landed his body began to glow fiercely. Static light no jutsu. He crossed his arms and then rubbing them together spread his arms out. All the light moved from his whole body to his arms and then left his body. Quickly the lights moved as he moved his hands, moving the lights towards Yamato. Unable to look at the lights directly, which burned his eyes when he first looked at the attack coming from his body, Yamato jumped out of the way of one, then rebounding off a tree he evaded the second. Jakin had taken advantage of his teacher's lack of momentum and attacked. He didn't go for the bells immediately, instead punching toward Yamato mid-air and grabbing him to throw him down and prevent him from landing on his feet. The move however didn't work as Yamato made a few quick seals and the ground he landed on became soft. As he got up, Jakin charged forward, again making his 3 seals. This time though he crossed his fingers and sent forth 8 smaller and dimmer lights. Yamato saw these ones and quickly dodged these 2 at a time and made 4 seals of his own, and before Jakin knew it his legs were ensnared by large roots. Though Jakin was trapped, Hanabi saw her chance and took it. She had set up 2 sets of kunai that could be sprung by pulling on wires. She pulled the first and they went flying towards Yamato, the farthest to the left getting stuck in the wood that surrounded Jakin's legs. Yamato expertly dodged these, and as he was landing, the second volley was loose to where he would land. He landed and jumped a split second before the volley hit. As soon as the second volley had landed, she jumped out. Her Byakugan activated. She saw his speed, angle, and height in air and made a rough estimation to where he would land and prepared 6 shuriken, throwing them to the general area, and then ran forward herself. Yamato made a few seals mid-air to catch the shuriken. As he landed though, she struck her real target. She did not aim for a critical point, it could have left her open and would have been more difficult. Instead she hit a pressure point in the right leg with her gentle fist style. That should disable it, she thought. Then with his slowed motions she aimed for a pressure point in the left arm just above the armpit, again disabling the limb and his ability to use jutsu. With an opening now available, she gave a kick to the face that bent him to the right side and went for the bells. As her fingers touched the bells, Yamato spun the top half of his body and grabbed her wrist. Seeing his movements with the Byakugan, she let him grab her wrist only to have a pressure point on his forearm, hit with another gentle fist. Now she calmly grabbed one of the bells from his side. She looked down on him with a grin of satisfaction. Well, seems like I win. And she began to walk away from Genin and Yamato. Where are you going, Hanabi? Asked Yamato. Why, I'm done. She responded, I have my bell already, so there is no point in me continuing. What about your teammate? Are you just going to leave him? You nearly hit him with that first set of kunai and you simply leave him to the enemy and go on by yourself. When you're in a real combat situation, the enemy won't leave your teammate alive. I could have bounded him earlier when I had his hand and you didn't make a movement to help him. You just waited for your moment to strike. Yes, but I knew the circumstances were not life or death, so I did not see it imperative to help him. This exercise is meant to prepare you for situations where they are life or death. Moves like the ones you pulled could get your whole team killed. You must actively work together. Whatever, and she began to walk away. Genin, who was stuck, overheard all of this and grew more and more angry. What the hell is wrong with you, bitch? You do have a heart, right? Yes, I do. She said then. Shinobi rule number 25. No matter what the situation, a shinobi must keep his emotions on the inside. You must make the mission your top priority, and you must possess the heart to never show tears. Remember that. I do have a heart, the heart of a shinobi. Yamato just sighed, his arms heavy at his sides. Where's Naruto? We're done for the day. Naruto woke up to the violent shaking of his body. As he sat up, he looked forward and saw Captain Yamato sitting against a tree, stretching out his arms. Next to him was the white-haired Genin, who had apparently woken him up. As he tried to stand up, a stinging pain went through his head and his hands jumped to the back of his head. Are you okay? Asked Genin. What happened? Naruto sat there and thought about what happened before he lost conciseness. As Naruto watched to see who would make the first move against Yamato, he went up a tray to watch. After about 5 minutes passed, Yamato left the spot where he had been standing and went deeper into the forest. Naruto followed and watched the former Anbu set up some obvious kunai and wood traps with his wire and wood jutsu. He then jumped through and used his wood jutsu to hide inside a tree and wait. Soon Naruto saw Genin hiding in the tree tops, looking down at the trapped area. Soon he pulled out several shuriken and threw them at the wires. He jumped and threw one after another. When they hit, 4 traps sprung. When the 5th did not, though, he ran through and landed on the tree that Yamato was inside. Bad luck for him, said Naruto silently. As expected, the wood came up and surrounded on of his hands. Yamato came out of the tree and approached Genin and started talking. Wasting no time, the boy used the kunai in his other hand, freed himself and went into a kick and jumped down to the ground, making seals. The boy suddenly started glowing and a bright light came out of his body. Naruto, blocking the light with his hands, felt himself lose balance and felt himself fall. Then nothing more. Naruto looked at Genin, still holding his head. I fell off the tree when you used your jutsu. What was that you used? Genin, giving a guilty smile, answered, oh, that. It was my static light no jutsu. It turns my chakra into a bright electric light. It might look dangerous, but this version of it wouldn't hurt you unless you keep looking at it. Really? For a second there I thought you were going to use Chidori. Where you learn a jutsu like that? Asked Naruto. Genin looked at Naruto with a look of surprise on his face. Though you would have figured it out. I told you my family was from the Lightning Village originally. My family has developed this jutsu and others. What, you're from the Lightning Village? I though we were at war with them for a long time and still weren't allies. Jacken let out a sigh and answered the question, obviously having heard them before. My mother and father decided to move our entire family here 5 years ago because how peaceful it was here. The Lightning Village is nothing like here. They are always preparing for a war, as if it will come any day now. That was when we left though. Since Orochimaru attacked Konoha it might have gotten even worse. Oh okay. Tell me more about your jutsu. It seemed real. Not now Naruto, broke in Yamato, who had managed to stand up and was leaning against the tree, his right leg still not working properly. Naruto saw this and inquired to what happened. Yamato informed Naruto on what Hanabi had done and what she said. Naruto, don't do anything brash, said Yamato. While what she did might seem wrong to you, her reasoning was that of a shinobi, and she was right when it came down to cold logic. Naruto obviously didn't like this answer and made it known. What? She is supposed to be on our team and she did something like that. She's worse than Sasuke or Neji ever were. At least neither of them ever tried to use their teammates and nearly injure them and leave them to die in enemy hands. No, said Naruto when Yamato tried to intervene. I don't care if it was an exercise or she knew he wouldn't get hurt. The meaning of the bell test is teamwork, something she doesn't know anything abo. Enough Naruto, yelled Yamato giving Naruto his scary eyes. I know how you feel about teamwork and all, but it's not your place to decide. I am her sensei and she is the member of the most powerful clan in Konoha. If she is simply disciplined without the notification or consent of the clan head there could be grave repercussions for the village. Since Orochimaru attacked the village still hasn't gotten back to its full power, and the loss of the Hyuga clan could be crippling. Jacken broke in here, having been the one used and nearly hurt, but Naruto is right, she can't be allowed to just get away with this. Something has to be done. And it will, said Yamato, but that is between the Hyuga and the Hokage. Now Naruto help me out here, my leg is still numb and not moving completely, though it should be better by morning. With that the threesome walked back to the village and to the Hokage's tower. When Yamato went into the Hokage's office Sakura came out. Glad to see the pink-haired girl after the morning fiasco Naruto went up to her to start a conversation. Hey, Sakura-chan. Hey Naruto. What's wrong with Captain Yamato? It looks like he has a limp there. Yeah, said Naruto with the smile leaving his face. It happened during a bell test with the new team. Oh yay, you have a new Genin team. What are they like? Well the one over there, said Naruto pointing to Jacken who was leaning against a wall left of Naruto, it pretty nice and he has a really cool jutsu. But the other one is the one who gave Captain Yamato the limp. She is Hinata's little sister, so it didn't take much to give him a limp. Yeah, I'll never be able to get over the fact that there are people who can do stuff like that with a touch. She is real arrogant like Neji used to be, said Naruto, but I'll put up with her if it means I can become a Chunin. Sakura let out a small laugh and smiled at Naruto, you're still not over not being Chunin yet. A little irritated Naruto answered, well yeah. You were allowed to take Shikamaru's spot on Asuma's team and the others all passed their Chunin exams as teams. I'm the only one. Besides, said Naruto getting a big grin that seemed to cover his face, how am I supposed to become Hokage if I'm just a Genin? Jacken watched as Naruto and some pink-haired girl talked. He wondered what kind of person he was. He didn't seem arrogant like Hanabi and he didn't really care what Jacken looked like the other kids at the academy. Naruto was a nearly complete stranger and yet he treated Jacken like more of a friend than anyone else in Konoha, it was so strange. Presently a young girl with long blue hair walked in. She had on black pants and a black jacket that was zipped all the way up. It was her eyes that Jacken paid real attention to. Her eyes were all white, the eyes of a Hyuga. Jacken kept staring at her, wondering if she was like Hanabi. Eventually she saw him staring, and he noticed he had put a frown on his face without noticing it. The girl lowered her eyes the corner and kept walking forward. Hey Hinata-chan, yelled a zealous Naruto, how ya doing? The girl blushed and pit her fingers together, oh, Naruto-kun. I didn't see you there. How are you? The girl obviously had a crush on Naruto, even Jacken could tell and it was the first time he had seen her. Oh I'm doing great. The smile slipped from his face. Hey Hinata, said Naruto his voice becoming serious, what can you tell me about your sister? The small girl clearly shocked by the question answered, Hanabi. Not very much. She is my little sister, but we don't get along very well since father had chose to train her instead of me. She is very proud of the clan and has trained very hard since she was 5 in order to graduate from the academy and be named clan heir. The girl looked down at the ground sadly. No, she was clearly not like Hanabi at all. Oh okay. I was just wondering because I'm on her Genin team now. Hinata looked up with surprise. Really, I had forgotten you were a Genin still. The pink-haired girl, he thought he heard Naruto call her Sakura, smiled and put her arm around his neck and pulled his head down. Oh yeah, Hinata, and neither can he. Hinata let out a small laugh at the scene and Jacken couldn't help but laugh too. It was when he laughed that Sakura noticed him. Naruto's head still firmly in her arms, she called over to him, hey, you're Jacken, right? You're on Naruto's team too now, right? MMHH, mumbled Naruto, whose mouth was covered by Sakura's arm. Yes, I am. I'm Jacken Orochi, it's a pleasure to meet you. Hi, I'm Sakura Haruno, said Sakura. I'm Hinata Hyuga, said Hinata very meekly. Jacken felt bad now. Was she being so meek because he had stared at her like that? It's very nice to meet you both. You were both Genin with Naruto. Sakura smiled. Yeah, I was on a team with him. Oh, I hope your other teammate won't be too disappointed at losing him, said Jacken sincerely. Though when he said it, the smile left her face. Hinata too looked upset by what he said and her eyes went back down to the ground. Sakura gave a weak smile and said, I'm sure Sasuke misses Naruto a lot. Yamato came out of the office, his limp on his right leg not as bad as it was anymore. Alright, team, we have the rest of the day off. Then he noticed Hinata there. Oh Hinata, would you save me a trip and tell your sister to report here in the morning for our first mission? Yes Yamato-sama, I'm sorry I cannot talk Sakura-chan, but I must give my report to the Hokage. And with that the young woman went into the office. Yamato had begun to walk out the door and Jacken was about to follow, then realized something. Sakura-chan. Yeah, can Naruto-kun breath like that? And Sakura dropped Naruto onto the ground. Yamato laid in his bed thinking about what had happened today. That girl, what is she? Thought Yamato to himself, I wouldn't fight back and she knew this, but to go so far and to be so aggressive. She was ready to sacrifice her teammate to accomplish her objective and used my unwillingness to strike back as a tool against me. The training her father is giving her must be extreme. Yamato had asked the Hokage about his 2 new students. The girl was a possible heir apparent for the clan, making the clan more unstable. A true heir would have to chosen soon between the 2 sisters. In addition, she was being schooled in the ways of the gentle fist by her father. He could feel the effects, even though she isn't an official heir. Being brought up as the favorite daughter of the clan head had made her more and more proud and very conceited the stronger she had become. There was no doubt that she was gifted, if not as gifted as her cousin Neji. By using the gentle fist she was able to take him down. Needless to say, he would be more careful around her. He didn't think his student would use such force against him and didn't even bother with a clone. The boy on the other hand was very different. His family, a minor shinobi clan from the Lightning Village, had moved to Konoha 5 years ago to stay here in peace. Here though they were outcasts for being from the Lightning Village. Years of war and a shaky agreement on both sides not to attack had given the people a bad image of the clan and any from the village. The clansmen and women were shinobi in the village, and though the 3rd Hokage had agreed to treat them as equals, they had managed to get the short end of the stick many times. Yamato was surprised when the boy came out and said he was from the Lightning Village. Though he suspected Naruto didn't pay much attention, Hanabi Mahaven could start some trouble if she wanted to. The boy had a good goal though, to have his clan recognized. He prayed that things would start getting better. He had no idea. Jacken was up before sunrise. He dressed in his black shorts and black t-shirt with his family's crest on the shoulder, a 4-pronged star with light rays coming off it. He meditated, and practiced a little on his punching bag. When he had finished at 7 he ate some fruit and went for a run before his mission at 8. At sunrise Hanabi woke up and got dressed in the black, loose-fitting cloths the Hyuga normally wore. She meditated, did some yoga stretches, and did a quick spare with her uncle. And by 7:15 was walking towards town before her mission. At about 7:30 in the morning Naruto woke up and crawled out of bed. He got changed into a new set of cloths and sulked into the bathroom, then kitchen. After checking the expiration date on the milk, he chugged it and walked out the door for the first of the D-rank missions he would have to endure. When Naruto arrived at the Hokage's tower a little before 8, he saw Genin and Hanabi already there. A few minutes later Yamato arrived, the limp no longer in his leg. All three of them stood and followed him into the tower. Inside, Sakura, Shizune, and a few others were rushing around doing paperwork, and handing out missions to shinobi already there. The group walked up to the desk that Shizune was sitting at. When they approached, she looked up from her paperwork. "Ah, hello Naruto, Captain Yamato. I have your first mission right here. When you're done," she said, adding this part for the two new genin, "come back here and get your pay and another mission." Yamato took the folder from her hand and the group walked out the door. When they got outside, Naruto asked a smiling Genin, "Why are you so happy?" "We're getting our first mission today." Naruto let out a little laugh and thought to himself, more like community service. Genin was of course upset when he heard. They were to go pull weeds, but didn't complain. They did 2 more by the end of the day. Naruto thought to himself, old Grandma Hokage must really have it out for me. During the next week the group followed the same general routine with doing a few missions or training. A week after they started doing missions, they went to the Hokage's tower for a new mission. They went to Shizune as usual and she told them that the Hokage would like to give them the mission. Naruto perked right up after hearing this. He knew that the Hokage gave out missions above D rank personally. When they entered, they saw Sakura giving Tsunade a small stack of papers and telling her that the mission was successful and all the information was in the reports. She turned around to leave and saw Naruto. As she walked past him, she whispered to him, "We might have less time than we thought," and left. Yamato then walked up and said, standing up straight, "Team 15 reporting for orders." Tsunade sighed, "At ease, Captain. Well, it appears you are all doing a good job. There have been no complaints from any customers and few complaints from Naruto." At that remark Naruto began to glare at the woman, "So I'm giving you a C rank mission. You are to escort a woman from Konoha to the Wave Country, so she can trade for goods there. I thought it would be appropriate for Naruto. Thank you Hokage-sama, we will leave once we meet up the women." With that Yamato took the small package from the Hokage's hand. Naruto was clearly thrilled at the mission. Not only would it mean leaving the village again, but it would mean getting to see his friends in the Wave Country. The group went to the women's house and told her they would be meeting at the front gate in a couple of hours so she could get her goods ready. When they got there, the old women who they were escorting had a group of 4 wagons hitched and ready to go. Each took a wagon to guard, Yamato in the front, Naruto in the back, and the others in the middle. It took them 2 days to get to the bridge that Naruto remembered being built. Once they reached the safety of the bridge, the shinobi got off and walked the rest of the way to the village. They would be here for a couple of days and then escort the old woman back to Konoha. As they walked, Naruto began to tell about his first trip here. Hanabi could not help but interrupt once they got to the part about him and the others freeing Kakashi from Zabuza. "Do you really expect us to buy this crap? Sharingan Kakashi and Zabuza, the devil of the bloody mist. If you were really in that fight, then you would have been killed instantly. Those 2 are legends. There is no way that Sharingan Kakashi would have been captured and no way you would have been able to free him from Zabuza." Genin also commented here, "Sorry Naruto, but she is right, you wouldn't stand a chance." Naruto, obviously bothered by their comments, tried to defend himself. "Ah, but it did happen, no matter how unlikely it seems." With a little grin Hanabi let out a laugh. "The weakling thinks us to really believe this. I'm sorry, but a weakling who has been a genin for 3 years and runs off any time we do group training would have had no chance against Zabuza." She did wonder though, why he went off by himself for training. If she saw him again afterwards, he would have cuts in his cloths and on his skin. Yamato always tells him not to work on the jutsu, just manipulation. Whatever it was, she was sure that it was rough on him. A little while after they reached the end of the bridge. Naruto, getting excited again, asked Yamato if he could leave to see his friends. "Yes, but remember, we're going to stay at the old women's brother's place." After he left, Hanabi couldn't have been happier, glad that liar is gone. Yamato turned around and looked at the pair. "You know Naruto isn't as weak as you think he is. He has gone through a lot. You really shouldn't take him for granted." Then he pointed to a carving in the stone pillar at the end of the bridge and walked away. Genin and Hanabi walked up to the carving and read what it said. The great Naruto bridge, where our courage is built and our dreams are realized. Hanabi couldn't believe it. It had to be coincidence or a lie. No way what that fool said was true. She would have to ask someone when she got a chance. Later in the day they were all brought to the old women's brother's place. While they were all getting ready for bed that night, Hanabi asked the old women about the bridge's name. The bridge? Why, I thought you would know. That boy you're traveling with, he and the other members of his group defeated the man Zabuza Momochi and his partner Haku. It was so sad to see that young man, Haku, die. From what Naruto-kun told us, Zabuza was all that the boy had and he died so Zabuza would live. By doing all of this, Naruto helped bring the courage back to the people, and with that courage came hope. It was more than Hanabi thought of the fool. How could he have done all of that? While I never saw him train, how could he remain a genin for 3 years unless he was weak? Presently Yamato knocked on the door and came in. Hanabi, we will be doing chakra exercises tomorrow, so rest up, okay? In the morning they all went off to a clearing in a forest. When they were there, Yamato explained the lesson. They would be climbing trees using chakra, with their feet. Naruto demonstrated it, by charging the chakra in his feet and walking straight up the tree. He told them to get a running start, or they were more likely to fall, and to mark of their heights with kunai. Both of the genin charged the chakra to their feet and started running. Jakin made it about a third of the way up the tree and then had to jump. Hanabi, though, didn't make it half as far. Once she hit the tree, she started to release the chakra rapidly, causing her to go flying farther from the tree instead of sticking to it. Unfortunately for her, Naruto couldn't help but laugh. If you're so smart, Blondie, she yelled at him, losing her temper for the first time in front of him, why don't you tell me what I did wrong? To her surprise, he actually answered, do you know the Kaden? Yes, you idiot, I'm being taught it by my father. Why? Hanabi was sure she would get this no problem. What was she doing wrong? You're used to trying to push all of the built chakra out of your body as fast as you can. Doing that with this will simply send you flying. Fool, like I would make a mistake like that. She said, but really thought, damn it, how could I make such a mistake? And it was obvious too. To her surprise though, Naruto did not try and bring her down like she had expected. Instead he jumped down from the tree and stood in front of her thinking. Finally he told her, why don't you use your Byakugan to see how I do it? It might not be a Sharingan, but you will see how the chakra flows. It was another obvious thing to do. Why is he helping me like this? All I've ever shown him is scorn. But help her he did. Jakin was able to pick up on the trick too. By sundown they could make it almost halfway. The point of this is to fine-tune your chakra control, said Yamato as they walked back. You both are doing good, better than Naruto or Sasuke did when they started this lesson. How long did it take you and this Sasuke to get to the top? Asked Jakin. 7 days, and on the 7th night we both made it to the top. Said Naruto, a small smile on his face from the memory of that night. Was that right before you fought Zabuza and the boy Haku? Asked Hanabi. Naruto just looked at her for a couple of seconds before answering. Yeah, we fought on the bridge before it was completed. Why, I thought you didn't believe me. Just curious to what kind of lie you make up this time. So what happened? Naruto went on and talked about what had happened until nightfall. That night, after Hanabi went to her room, Jakin asked Naruto, why did you do all of that for Hanabi today? She doesn't deserve it. Naruto looked at him and after a few seconds he said, when me, Sasuke, and Sakura were all in a team together, we all had some really good memories. Hanabi reminds me a lot about Sasuke. Besides, we need to work on teamwork. I know my friend Shikamaru would kill to get you on his team. Jakin gave a little laugh then asked, you always talk about this Sasuke guy like he gone. What happened? Sasuke was a great friend and a rival, said Naruto after a while. He and I were always at odds, but we were still friends. 2.5 years ago he left the Leaf and joined the Sound. Jakin left it at that. In the morning the group prepared to leave. They helped the old woman hitch up the wagons and set out to make the 2-day journey back home. She had finished all the trading she needed to do early so they would be able to go today. The first day went by smoothly. On the second day, about an hour or two from Konoha, though things became interesting. While an hour or so from Konoha, Jakin asked some questions about Hanabi's Byakugan. How does it work? What exactly do you see? Hanabi tried to tell him as best she could, getting more and more irritated. When she finally activated it and tried to explain what she saw, something caught her attention. "Captain Yamato," she called, "we're being followed." If Yamato was worried about who they were, he didn't let it on. "Where are they and how many?" he asked calmly. "There are 4, she said, and they are coming in on us fast from the back." Yamato gave out orders. Hanabi and Genin would stay and guard the cargo, and the old woman, Naruto, and him would confront the pursuers and deal with them. Naruto and Yamato prepared themselves at the back, and when they came into view there were indeed 4. The first one that came jumped over the 2. Before either could attack they had their hands full, as one attacked Naruto and the last 2 attacked Yamato. When Naruto got a good look at the attackers, he saw that they were from the Sound Village. Hanabi, Genin watched the old women and the wagons. "Naruto, you and me will meet them head on. We don't know how strong they are, so don't get carried away and lose your head," said Yamato. "And Naruto, don't try and use your new jutsu yet, it's not finished." Soon the enemy were in sight. They were all dressed in black clothing and the standard yellow and black spotted neckliners. The first on came at them and then jumped straight over their heads. Before Naruto or Yamato could do anything, though, they both had their own enemies to deal with. One of them came at Naruto and the last 2 attacked Yamato. When Naruto finally got a good look at the enemy, he saw they were Sound Nin. "Damn it," yelled Naruto, "can't you people just leave the leaf alone? Your master has already taken enough from us." The Sound Nin, however, didn't stop to listen to Naruto. He rushed on and pulled out a kunai in his right hand. As Naruto finished he rambling, the Nin was nearly on him. Naruto dodged to the Nin's right. The Nin saw and gaining momentum slashed to the right, turning his whole body towards Naruto. Naruto saw the attack coming and ducked down a little. The kunai went through some hair in open air. The Nin followed through and punched at Naruto with his left hand, which Naruto dipped the rest of the way down to avoid. The Nin then brought up the kunai and stabbed down at Naruto, who was close to the ground now. Naruto dived to the left and out of the way as the man swung up with the kunai. Naruto, getting his balance back by putting some space between him and his enemy, readied 3 shuriken. He, I'm glad Ero-sensei taught me this jutsu," thought Naruto, who made a few quick hand signs with his left hand while jumping up into the air. Shuriken Kage Bushin no Jutsu, throwing the 3 stars which soon turned into thousands. The Sound Nin jumped out of the way of the shuriken as best he could, getting some stuck in his left arm and leg. As Naruto came down, Naruto made the quick signs for his Kage Bushin, and when he landed he ran forward, the 2 Bushin he created running a little behind him to either side. The Sound Nin made some hand signs and the kunai in his hand started to glow. He threw it at the first Naruto, who simply ducked it. The first Naruto jumped up and went in for a kick to the head. The Nin stopped this by crossing both of his and blocking the hit. The kicker jumped up though. Soon the Naruto on the left had sped up and delivered a punch to the Nin's stomach, so he bent, doubled over, followed by the last Naruto kicking the feet out from under the Nin. Soon the Naruto who had jumped up came down to land on the fallen Nin. Before he could land though, he was struck by a kunai and he disappeared into a puff of smoke. The Nin pulled out another kunai while getting up and stabbed down at the Naruto who had cut the legs from under him. This Naruto also appeared to be a clone. The first Naruto backed away, looking to either side to see if there were any more kunai coming. The Sound Nin stood up and made more seals, and the kunai he held glowed like the other. He then held out his hand and the kunai that had taken out the first Naruto flew back to his hand. "Like it, I can hit any target with this jutsu." And he threw both kunai at Naruto. Naruto jumped up into a tree that was near at hand. The kunai though followed him up. As fast as he could, Naruto grabbed a kunai and was able to block one of the hits, the other struck him in the shoulder. The Nin put both of his hands forward again and the kunai in Naruto's shoulder flew out and went back to the Nin's hand. Naruto gasped in pain and dropped the kunai in his hand. "Shall we try something more complex?" said the Nin, and threw the 2 kunai down into the ground and pulled out 6 shuriken. Holding the all in one hand, the Nin did the seals. Naruto pulled out 2 kunai, wincing with pain as he bent his shoulder over. The Nin threw the glowing shuriken, 3 at a time. Once they were out of his hands he put his palms downward and the 2 kunai that he threw went right back up and were in pursuit of the shuriken. Naruto blocked first one, then the second and third shuriken with his right kunai. He was able to move his left arm up in time to stop the 4th shuriken, but he winced in pain and was hit in the arm by the last 2 shuriken and fell out of the tree he had been perched in. The kunai that would have hit him logged into the branch. I need to end this fast, thought Naruto as several flashes came from the area of the wagons, to the left of Naruto. The nin looked over to where the others were fighting. Naruto, seeing him distracted, ran forward. I can end it with that, thought Naruto, charging the chakra to his hands. Nearing into the nin, he was seen. The nin put his hands forward to call his weapons back. He said, "He that want work, they'll just get you from behind." The two shuriken in his arm came flying out, and Naruto, who winced in pain, ran on. As the weapons came closer back to him, Naruto punched an open palm, about a yard from the nin, shooting a lance of wind towards the nin's heart, piercing him through. The weapons that the nin was calling back flew on for a little while longer, then dropped out of the air. Naruto held onto his arm and shoulder where he had been hit and had the weapons pulled back out. He looked around and saw Hanabi and Jakin struggling with their shinobi enemy, and Yamato, though a Junin, struggling against the two shinobi he was fighting. Though Naruto wanted to go and help the man who had become another sensei and another bond to him, he knew that the other two probably wouldn't be able to hold on much longer, and so went to help them. The fight had started. Jakin saw the first nin jump over Naruto and come running towards them. The old woman had jumped down from the head wagon and was hiding under the wagons. As the kunoichi came closer, Jakin prepared two kunai in his hands and saw Hanabi prepare her Byakugan. She dropped into a fighting position, with her torso leaned back and both hands open and at the ready in front of her. The nin came closer and pulled out a chain with a kunai attached to the end. She stopped and swung it wide, the length of the chain and kunai filling the gap between her and them. Hanabi ducked below the chain and ran forward to confront the woman. Jakin ducked beneath the chain and also charged forwards. The nin pulled the chain back, jumping backwards, catching the kunai. She pulled another chain out and threw both of the kunai. One toward Jakin, on her left, and one at Hanabi on her right, crossing the chains over one another. Though neither hit, the woman swung both chains, causing them to snake back towards the two. Though Hanabi, with her Byakugan, saw the ploy and ducked below the lower of the chains, Jakin only saw one coming back at his legs and jumped, getting caught on the top chain. The chain hit him and sent him flying to the left against a tree and knocked him out. Hanabi went on, not seeming to notice his fallen comrade. She quickly closed the gap between them and struck out. The kunoichi dropped both chains and knocked away her strikes. Each one blocked was quickly followed up by another and another. The sound nin finally found an opening and kicked at the young Genin. Though she saw the strike coming, Hanabi could not block or dodge fast enough. The other woman was much faster than her and she had only kept up due to her Byakugan. The kick sent Hanabi flying back and she turned it into a roll and was up on her feet. She pulled 4 shuriken and threw them at the charging kunoichi, who had drawn a long kunai and had managed to block all 4, and charged again. Going again into the pattern of strike and block. Finally, though, the other woman's speed had caught up to Hanabi as she brought down the kunai and cut along the right side of Hanabi's face. Wincing with the pain, Hanabi bent her neck to the left. The woman pulled up the kunai and prepared a finishing blow when a bright light caught her eyes. Jakin had managed to get up after a while and was now right next to where the two had been fighting. He slid his right hand down the left arm and the light jettisoned out of his hand, striking the sound nin in the face with amazing speed. The nin was blinded now, holding her hands over her face and trying to squint between her fingers. Jakin lunged forward, his fist extended. The kunoichi, though, had seen the attack through wincing and grabbed his arm, swinging him into Hanabi, who had been stunned from the light as well. The kunoichi raised her kunai and said, "We knew Konoha was weak, but this is just pathetic. I knew we didn't need Orochimaru. Now die gracefully." She raised the kunai higher and would have plunged it down if not for Naruto, who had come up and was holding her hand with his right. The other hand had a clone forming the Rasengan on it. When it was formed, he plunged it into he back. Jakin looked up and saw Naruto holding her arm, and then, as if a bomb had exploded in her chest, her whole front side exploded in blood and organs, Naruto's hand visible through the other side. Hanabi couldn't believe her eyes. She had seen it through the Byakugan. She saw Naruto and the clone, watched as the chakra built up in his palm. The chakra was a surging storm in the palm of his hand. She wondered that it didn't explode as he held it there. Then he plunged the orb into her body, watched as the surging power that was caught in the sphere exploded, and the woman who both Jakin and herself could not put a mark on, let alone defeat, was destroyed. Naruto pulled his hand out of her body and she fell forward. Naruto fell down onto his hands and knees, low on blood from his fight. He was still bleeding profusely and he needed to bandage them up. He looked over at the two younger genin. Hanabi was on her back, her face pale with the blood from her cut beginning to soak her clothing. Jacken was looking up at him, lying on his stomach across her legs. He was in shock from the sight. If his face wasn't already white he would have been pale. Naruto then looked over at Yamato. He had managed to take out one of the shinobi, who was impaled on a spike. The other one fighting fiercely, sending waves of fire jutting out with every punch. Naruto didn't think he could do anything but get in the way with his arm. But he stood up, he could still do something. He began to walk towards the fierce battle trying not to be noticed. Yamato's battle had started with the two ninja coming at him. The first, a red-haired man with bright green eyes attacked from above, and the second, a man with dark blue eyes and long brown hair and a scar running from his left eye down his face and onto his neck, attacked from below. Yamato blocked the first with his hands and stopped the second with a kick. The red-haired man jumped back and threw shuriken he had grabbed midair when he landed. Yamato made several signs and made a wall off wood to catch them. The scarred man had made signs of his own and pulled up a large rock. While the rock was held mid-air by the second mon's chakra, the first one had made some seals and set the rock ablaze and sent it towards Yamato. He jumped back from the wall and when the rock hit the pressure and the heat caused it to explode, causing pieces of rock and wood to come flying towards him. Making quick seals, Yamato used a replacement jutsu and instead of being impaled by the fragments from the explosion he was hidden in a tree. Using the break in combat, Yamato made several hand signs and two wood clones came out of the tree he was standing on. The clones jumped out, each one confronting one of the men. Yamato used shuriken and kunai while they fought with his clones. The fighting like this went on until a large flash came from the wagon train. Yamato and the clones, looking in concern for the young genin, moved their attention to the flash. Both of the shinobi used the time to use their jutsu. The red-haired man making a series of 6-hand seals, then punching at the clone with a large wave of fire that consumed the clone. The other shinobi making a few signs and sending a large rock at the clone taking off its head. As soon as the clones were dispatched the two shinobi turned to Yamato and charged in, swiping at his feet and his chest, working in series to try and threw him off balance. Finally when Yamato had managed to push both away and get some room between the two, did they mess up. The two both jumped in pulling out kunai and going in. Yamato made some quick signs and two spikes came out of the ground. The red-haired man was able to jump over the spike. Obviously the faster of the two, but the scarred man was impaled. Seeing his friend, the red-haired man made the 6-hand seals again and started at Yamato with a barrage of fiery punches. Between the heat and the mon's speed, Yamato was beginning to get burns along his sides and arms. Suddenly, after coming beside a tree, a large gust of wind came and threw the man across to another nearby tree. Yamato took the opening to end the battle. He made 4 seals and a log of wood came up from the ground. With a punch the wood splintered and pierced the man all over his body. It was after the final blow was struck that Naruto finally collapsed from blood loss. Hanabi looked on in wonder as the injured Naruto blasted the remaining sound nin and watched as Yamato struck the nin down. Naruto collapsed, and Yamato ran over to him. As Yamato began to bandage his arm, she and Jacken both got to their feet and walked over to the two. As she approached she heard Yamato say, "I can't believe he held its chakra in check the entire time." Yamato looked over the two, checking Hanabi's gash down her face and made sure that Jacken hadn't broken any bones. When he was done with them he turned to the wagons and the old woman. She was still under her wagons. When they coaxed her out Yamato had them gather the bodies and placed them on the wagons. "We must search the bodies to learn anything we can," Yamato explained. They began their dreary walk back to Konoha. Jacken walked beside the wagon that held Naruto's unconscious body. His left arm had been torn up badly in the battle. Yamato had wrapped his arm as best they could and proceeded the slow march back to Konoha. Jacken still remembered the death of the shinobi Hanabi and he had fought. He remembered how her front seemed to explode, though there was no fire, and seeing Naruto's hand through her. Jacken had never been more terrified in his entire life. He knew that being a shinobi would require him to see people die and to kill them, but nothing could have prepared him for that sight. Yamato had told them the sound nin that had attacked them had been Junin or upper-level chunin and that they were never expected to defeat her. Jacken had a feeling that his comment had been meant for Hanabi more than him. The girl was strong, yes, but she was also overproud. Yamato had the bodies of the sound nin taken along with them so they could be inspected. The bodies were on the last 3 wagons, covered by some sheets that the old woman had bought. Jacken had seen the body of the nin Naruto had fought. Where its heart should have been there was a hole on both sides, not even the bone was there anymore. Jacken, his curiosity spiked, wondered how could Naruto be so strong. He never comes to training with me or Hanabi and he has been a genin for 3 years. Jacken mentally chided himself for thinking something that Hanabi was likely to say. For the life of him he could not come to like his partner. Naruto seemed to be able to be friendly with anyone, even Hanabi. It had been about an hour and a half since their confrontation. Suddenly there was a rustling in the trees to the left of the wagons. Everyone visibly stiffened and turned. Out jumped a large dog soon followed by a person Jacken had never seen before. The person had long brown hair and red marks on his cheeks. The man and dog looked at the small wagon train, then, seeing Naruto on the first wagon, gave a start. "Naruto!" yelled the man and ran over to the wagon. "What happened to him?" he said looking at Yamato across the wagon. Yamato responded clearly relaxed. "We were attacked on our way back from the wave country by 4 powerful sound nin," he said pointing to the other wagons. "While we did defeat them, Naruto lost a lot of blood and my other 2 genin suffered some injuries, but nothing as bad as Naruto." The other looked up at Yamato. "Why would Orochimaru send his people to Konoha now? Were they after Naruto?" "I don't know," said Yamato, "but Orochimaru has his reasons." Hanabi had walked closer to the 2 men who were talking and spoke up after hearing this. "I don't think they were sent by Orochimaru," she said. The 2 looked down at her, surprise in the new man's eyes, and a look of thinking and wondering in Yamato's eyes. "She said," continued Hanabi, "something like, 'I knew we didn't need Orochimaru. I think they were just runaways.'" "It would make sense," said Yamato, "that shinobi that were gathered by Orochimaru would have a grudge against the leaf. We will have to think on it more once the Hokage hears this news and we get Naruto to a hospital." "I wouldn't worry too much about Naruto," said the other man turning to the large dog. "Naruto will be there for one day and then run away to get some ramen. I'll head back to Konoha and inform the Hokage of what happened to you." The man gave one last look at Naruto and then jumped away towards Konoha, the dog following soon after. Once again though, Jacken's curiosity spiked, but Hanabi beat him to the question. "Captain Yamato, why would Orochimaru be after Naruto?" Yamato looked down at Naruto for a few seconds, then at Hanabi and smiled. "I cannot tell you everything, it is Naruto's secret to tell. But Naruto lost someone very close to Orochimaru. Come on, let's get back on the road." Half an hour later, the little group had entered the town and parted with the old woman after she had carried Naruto and the bodies to the hospital. Yamato was away and giving his report to the Hokage. Hanabi and Jacken were being seen to by medical ninja. 2 women, one with pink hair and the other with brown hair and a pig following her around, had taken Naruto. Jacken had told Hanabi, when the 2 came to get Naruto, that the pink-haired girl was Sakura Haruno, a former teammate of Naruto's. Hanabi had known both girls, of course, they were both the apprentices of the Hokage. She had been brought up knowing all of the political figures in Konoha, and apprentices to the Hokage were no exception. The cut on Hanabi's face had been healed as best as the lower-level medical nin could. A scare now ran down the right side of her face, a scar she would have for the rest of her life. Jacken had some bad bruising on his arm, where the chain had struck him, and the skin would be sensitive for a few days. Hanabi could not help but fall into a trance-like state, where she would zone out many of the things around her and go deep into thought. How could he be so strong? He has never once trained with any of us and he was a genin for 3 years. How could he use an attack that destroyed someone like that? Was there something she was forgetting? Something seemed to stick out in her mind yet stayed hidden. Her thoughts continued to wander, deeper and deeper. How could both me and the tool be defeated so easily? Yamato had said we were never expected to defeat them, that they were Junin. Bullshit. We should have been able to do something deeper. They spiraled. Is what Naruto said in the Wave Country true? It seemed like some story that my mother would tell me when I was young. 2 ninja of great strength fighting, and a boy becoming some sort of champion. But the people in the town said it was true, and the bridge's name. Deeper. Why would Orochimaru be after Naruto, if Naruto was the one to lose someone? Deeper still. Soon though Hanabi was distracted, someone had shaken her out of her thoughts. Hanabi, said a voice, are you okay? She looked up and saw it was her cousin Neji. Yes cousin, I was just thinking. She replied honest. Enough. Perhaps he can answer some questions. She thought. Neji, do you know Naruto-kun? She asked, adding the extra respect for what she had seen today. Neji looked at her, a small smile on his face. Yes I do. I have not had a chance to come see him. I had been away on mission since you became a Genin. Why? He asked. Naruto-kun was placed on my team, only 8 Genin graduated this year. Really? Asked Neji, a small laugh on his voice. Consider yourself lucky. I do not know a better person to have on your team. He is very loyal to his friends, he would even chase them to the end of the earth to save them. He said. The laugh faded from his voice at this last comment. Where is Naruto? He lost a lot of blood when we were attacked and was taken by the Hokage's apprentices, Sakura and Shizune. The Nin were that strong. Said Neji to himself. Neji. She asked quietly, how do you know Naruto? Neji looked at her quizzically. We took the Chunin exams together, long ago. You were there at my fight, nearly 3 years ago, when Konoha was attacked. You saw when me and Naruto fought. Right. She did not remember though. She did not remember any of the fights from that day. When the sleeping jutsu was placed on the crowd, she had fallen from her seat and hit her head on the seat in front of her. She was never told about the few fights there were, the attack on Konoha being on everyone's lips and the fights seemingly forgotten in the chaos. No cousin, I did not remember. How did your fight turn out? She replied. Neji looked at her, as if he did not believe the words that she had spoken. Naruto, he replied slowly, is the only person to ever defeat me in single combat, save your father. The only other person to come as close, I was able to kill first. Hanabi could not believe what he said. She had always thought Neji to be the best in the village, the best of the Hyuga line. She had seen her father and Neji spar, and seen Neji defeated, but that had not happened for since Neji became a Chunin. How could Naruto defeat him? Why has he remained a Genin if he is this strong? How? Why? A million questions went through her head. Do you resent him for defeating you? She asked suddenly. No, I only respect him for his strength. Answered Neji, and then as if reading some of her thoughts went on. I respect him for being able to bring me the truth of my father. I thank him for giving me a bond with my uncle. I thank him for curing me of my blindness, when I would not see the truth. I also envy him his power and acknowledge that his greatest power is not in battle. Hanabi did not know what the last comment meant. Is he telling the truth? Does he really have this much respect for Naruto-kun? The questions kept coming. Come Hanabi, your father will be getting worried. Jakin had sat there, across from where Hanabi and her cousin had been talking. His mother was to come and see him home, the doctors had told him. He wondered how strong Naruto really was. Jakin couldn't wait for a chance to enter the Chunin exams. He would be able to see how strong Naruto was then. A young boy in black and a tall man with silver hair in the black and green vest of a Chunin were up at the hospital clerk. Jakin heard him ask about Naruto. I'm sorry sir, I don't have him down here yet. Said the nurse. I know where he is. Said Jakin standing up. The pair turned around and looked at him. The one in all black had a sword on his back that protruded over his shoulder and short black hair. The tall Chunin had a mask on and his forehead protector over his left eye. The two walked up to him, the Chunin talking first. You know where Naruto is? Said the Chunin in a low monotone's voice. Yes, answered Jakin, he was taken by Sakura-chan and another woman to see to his wounds. The black-clad man had an uneasy look on his face. Were his wounds serious? He had taken several hits to the arm and lost a lot of blood. Said Jakin then, how do you to know Naruto-kun? We are on his team. Said the Chunin, though Jakin looked at the two confused. Naruto is on 2 teams currently. Said the Chunin, your team, led by Yamato, and Team 7, led by me. Team 7 has a different objective than normal teams, it is a recon team for info on a missing nin. Jakin had a thought suddenly, would that ninja be Sasuke? The Chunin looked at the boy, for a boy he was in comparison, consideringly. Yes, Sasuke is the one we are looking for information on. Why is he on our team then, if he is on another team? I saw how strong he was. No you didn't, said the man. No one, not even Naruto himself, has seen how strong he really is. But I must be going. Sai, will you wait here until we can go see Naruto? I have some work I must do. Of course Kakashi, said the man who was apparently named Sai. After a while Jakin's mother had come. The woman was as white as her son, her hair was cut close to her head. She had a slim body, her forehead protector around her neck. She asked him what had happened, as they walked down the dusty roads that led to their house. He told her and she took it all quietly. When he finished, a few moments of silence came, followed by, perhaps we should go a little further in the training I've been giving you. The Hyuga girl and her family seem to do good training their children. Jakin had a smile on now. I would much appreciate it, mother. After today I have been wondering if I will be strong enough to enter the Chunin exam in 4 months. The woman laughed and messed up the boy's hair. Well, if that's what we're aiming for, then we have no time to lose. I have a few jutsu you should be strong enough to handle. We'll speed you up and work on the different light jutsu and you should be ready in time. Jakin was so happy that he didn't see his mother slow down and walk behind him before she had him running. Naruto woke up to the sound of a bird chirping in his window. He moved his head and saw Sakura sleeping in a chair nearby his bed. He gave a little smile. I guess I worried her. He thought to himself. It was morning, he could see the sun rising through his window. He looked down and saw his hand in a white binding. Got a little clumsy. Then he sat up in the bed, his clothing on the other side of the room. Holding the hospital robe close he walked over to them. The jacket was ruined, but the sleeveless undershirt and pants were still in good condition. He threw on the pants and was about to pick up the shirt when Sakura woke up. She looked at him and then standing up and yelled at him, "What's this? We spent 2 hours trying to patch you up and get you enough blood and you're up and trying to leave already. I should kill you myself instead of giving some sound nin the pleasure." Naruto, clearly petrified of the angry woman, could not respond. He just pulled his hand away from the shirt and walked over and sat on the bed. "Sorry Sakura-chan. Well, I was waiting so I could talk to you," said the pink-haired Kunoichi. "I hadn't been able to tell you but we have some news on Sasuke." The blonde-haired boy looked up at this. "Really, what is it?" The girl had a sad look on her face and tears started to come down her face. She jumped into Naruto giving him a hug and crying into his chest. "We don't have half a year, Naruto. We only have 2 months at most." Naruto looked at the pink-haired girl, wide-eyed, as she cried. 2 months. It's impossible. How do you know? The girl looked up at him, her eyes red and puffy. Team 7 went on recon with Jiraiya-sama. By gathering the data from what Yamato saw of Orochimaru and what we saw and heard, his current body is already starting to reject his soul and will soon try to transfer bodies. Naruto thought for a while. 2 months, 2 months. What can we do? Then Naruto came up with an idea. All we need to do is keep Sasuke and Orochimaru separated or occupied and he will not be able to make the switch. But try as he could, he saw no way to make it possible. "Sakura, we must try to do something. Try and find where they are. We must try and get them one more time." Sakura looked up at him. "Ahoo. We'll do it, we must," said the girl getting up. "I should get to work then. We have to do something." Naruto watched as she left, hoping she was alright. He wanted to find Sasuke more than anyone, but she had looked thinner than usual, her eyes had bags that showed signs of sleep deprivation. Naruto turned to his orange and black shirt and struggled to put it on around his cast. He then pulled himself up to the window with his good arm and jumped over to the nearest rooftop. "Time for some ramen," he said to himself. Hanabi woke up and got dressed. Putting on the black clothing she, and other members of the Hyuga clan, normally wore. She tied her head protector around her waist and walked towards the main hall, looking for her father or Neji. The only person in the main hall was Hinata. "Hello sister," said the older girls, "how are you today?" Hanabi did not like the girl. They were siblings, true, but the girl was weak. She remembers her father saying how she was weaker than her little sister. That was when Hinata was sent to the academy. Though Hanabi was distracted today, a thought came to her then. "Sister," said Hanabi, despising every second she had to play niceties with the older girl, "what do you know about Naruto Uzumaki?" The older girl blushed and looked down. "Naruto-kun is very strong. He has always worked harder than everyone else, even when the others in the school would make fun of him. I heard he was on your Genin team, sister. A little laugh in her voice at this. You should be very happy. He has been through a lot and can help with many things. These were all things that Hanabi had already known. She did wonder though why everyone seemed to laugh at the fact that he was on her Genin team. She then asked, who was his sensei, Hinata? Hinata looked at the younger girl and thought for a second. Oh, that's right. He was trained by Kakashi Hatake until Sasuke ran away. He spent the past 2.5 years training with his new mentor, Jiraiya-sama. Hanabi could not believe it. She had known both names. Kakashi Hatake was the son of Konoha's Silver Fang and known as the copycat ninja. Jiraiya-sama was known by everyone in Konoha. He was one of the legendary three, the greatest of shinobi to ever come out of the village. How could she ever expect to compete against someone trained by those two? She could now believe how he was so strong. Hinata, do you know where father is? Yes, sister, he is in the courtyard sparring with cousin Neji. Why? She felt no reason to her sister suddenly. Why? How am I going to become strong enough to compete in the Chunin exams if I don't start training? The two of them went to the courtyard, not far away. Neji and Hiyashi were walking from the center of the courtyard. Hiyashi looked at his daughters together, a smile flashing across his face. There had been an animosity from the younger girl that he had feared would cause more problems between the three of them. Hanabi had always been bitter, only having a mother during her younger years. He wondered when they had been able to come to terms. The older daughter had been his pride and joy when she was younger. He had had a grudge against the child and blamed her for his brother's death. He had realized eventually that such a thing was ridiculous. He had not realized this until it was too late. He had already sent her to the academy and given praise to her sister, while shunning her. Hanabi came closer and they both bowed down on one knee. Father, I wished to ask a favor of you, she said formally. Of course, I would do anything for my daughters, said the man, truly meaning it. I would ask of you to train me again, said the young girl. While I have graduated from the academy, I wish to participate in the Chunin exams in 4 months. The only one on my team who is ready for them is far ahead of either me or the last person on the team, and I wish to come to the exam and hold myself up during the fights. Hiyashi looked at his daughters considering. The younger one was eager to learn and wished to accelerate fast enough to compete. She was younger than when Hinata had taken the exams. Would she truly be ready to kill? He had heard of the incident outside of the village from Neji. That small sight of what death is would not be enough. He could not prepare her for that. He must prepare her as best he could. He then thought of his eldest daughter. She had been able to become a Chunin, but could he truly train the younger and deny the elder? He had done it in the past, but that was out of spite. He could try to mend what he had done, if it could indeed be mended. Yes, I shall train you, both of you, said Hiyashi. When he said it, both girls looked at him in shock. Hinata had not expected to be offered the chance, and Hanabi was clearly not expecting to have to share the training with her sister. Yes, the animosity is still there, he thought to himself. Thank you, father, said Hanabi, a grimace on her face as she bowed down. Hinata also thanked him but asked when Hanabi had left to meet her team, do you truly wish to train me, father? I would understand if you only trained Hanabi. Hiyashi was a little disappointed in his daughter's inability to stand up for herself. Perhaps training her will help a little. He had heard from Neji that she wished to change herself. She had started to, and now she had to go farther and finish it. Hinata, I wish for you to train with me as well. I did not do as I should have when you were younger, but I will do what I can for you both now. Thank you, father. Jakin walked into the hospital around noon and went up to the clerk. He had come to see Naruto and see if he would be able to do missions with them again soon. The nurse told him where Naruto's room was and he began to walk. He had started training with his mother yesterday. He had never thought the speed training would end. She had worked him harder than anyone else he had ever trained with. She told him the idea was to become fast enough to attack as soon as your enemy closed his eyes. Her training would work wonders with his jutsu, and he hadn't even began to learn the higher levels yet. He got up to the room and saw the man, Sai, in the room. He was looking around like he had just got there. Hiya, he said with a smile, I remember you from yesterday. Sorry I never introduced myself yesterday, I was worried about Naruto-kun. My name is Sai. Hello, I'm Jakin Orishi. Where is Naruto-kun? Sai just shrugged his shoulders, seems like he ran away already. Jakin thought on what the strange man form yesterday had said. Do you know where Naruto eats ramen? Said Jakin, putting his hand to his head. I thought I was going to relax today. Sai was leading Jakin to the stand where Naruto ate ramen. The younger boy wondered why Naruto would leave the hospital so soon. When they reached the stand, Jakin saw that there were two people sitting behind the cloths that separated the stand from the outside. When the two entered the ramen stand, Naruto and a girl with her hair in two buns were sitting at the stand. The girl had her chin in her hands and Naruto had his head down on the counter. Three men were behind the counter, two trying to make ramen and the last scolding them every time they made a single mistake. Naruto, said Jakin, a sigh on his voice, why are you here? You're supposed to be in the hospital. The girl and Naruto both looked at the boy. I just can't stand being cooped up in that small hospital room and I wanted some ramen. The girl looked at Naruto and then hit him in the back of the head. You idiot, she yelled, you didn't tell me you were supposed to be in the hospital. When you asked me to come for ramen I was under the impression that you were already released. The sighing she put her head in her hand. I came to get away from Lee and Guy Sensei's crazy training and I find a person worse than both. Naruto looked at the girl, calm down Tenten. At least they haven't found you yet. Naruto, said Sai this time, Kakashi was looking for you. We have news on Sasuke you should hear. Naruto sat staring for a few seconds, then with a frown on his face, Sakura-chan told me the news already. Sai, he said looking up at the man, is Sakura okay? She looked a little worse for wear when I saw her. Sai shook his head, she has been working herself hard. When we went on the mission together she pushed herself as far as she could go. When we got back she just kept on working. I think she has been beating herself up over the whole situation. Keep an eye on her, Sai, said Naruto, a hint of a warning in his voice, don't let her go too far. The other man just nodded. Come on, said Naruto, trying to lift the mood a little, these guys won't have any ramen for us anytime soon. As he stood, Naruto looked at Jakin. Yes Naruto-kun. Jakin, why are you here? Didn't we get the day off? Actually Yamato had asked both me and Hanabi to come and see you today. Naruto gave a small laugh and walked out of the ramen stand. As they walked Naruto asked about Jakin's jutsu. Oh, said Jakin, well my jutsu turns my chakra into light. By rubbing my skin together I can move that light out of my body. The larger the area of skin that goes together the brighter the light. People think that the lights will hurt them and lets me attack. It is meant to be used for distracting your enemy and then attacking with other jutsu. You would know this if you stayed for the team practices. Ended Jakin. Naruto looked at the boy, well I've been practicing something else and I didn't want anyone to get hurt. Really? Asked Jakin genuinely, what are you doing? Naruto getting a smile on his face, I'm developing an original jutsu. It's going to combine my Rasengan and manipulating my wind chakra. Naruto, should you be talking about this? Said Sai. Come on Sai, said Tenten, I want to hear about his new jutsu. Well it's not finished yet, said Naruto, all it does so far is just fling me around and cut me up. Jakin thought such a thing would be truly powerful. Naruto, what did you use against the sound nin? Naruto looked at the boy, that was my Rasengan. It's like a vortex contained inside a ball. When I hit the nin it all exploded. Jakin could barely comprehend something like that and Naruto wants to make it stronger. Jakin wondered whether he would even be able to compete in the Chunin exam and Naruto was already able to take on Junin and win. The four continued to walk on. Eventually Sai left and said he had to go see Kakashi. When the group tuned the next corner Tenten saw the people she had been trying to stay away from and jet the other way. Lee however had seen Naruto and called over to him. Hey Naruto-kun, over here. Naruto and Jakin walked over to the pair. The first thing Jakin thought when he saw the two together was they must be related. There is no way fate gives out two sets of brows like that. Naruto introduced Jakin to the two, this is Jakin Orishi, Lee. He's on my Genin team. The older of the two browed men gave a little cough and the younger one, Lee, was visibly trying to hold back a smile and losing. Naruto saw this and pointed at the man, screw you bushy brows, I have to be on a Genin team. Tenten didn't laugh when I told her. Guy looked at Naruto, you've seen Tenten today. Where is she? I've been looking for her everywhere. Lee, stay here. I'm going to find our young Tenten and see that she lives her youth to the fullest. I'm sorry Naruto-kun, said Lee, a smile and a laugh both on his face. I didn't mean to laugh at you. Jacken, I am Rock Lee. It's very nice to meet you. Lee looked at Jacken for a second. You are the member of the Orochi clan, correct? Jacken looked a little troubled. Yes I am, my grandfather is the current head of the clan. I thought so. You have the look that is given to your clan members. I know it well. Your clan members are some of the fastest fighters in the Leaf. The Kunoichi known as Kurina Orochi is said to be the fastest person in all of the Leaf. I could believe it after yesterday, said Jacken. She is my mother. But we use a style from the Lightning Village that is meant to train your body for speed. I have heard there is a style in the village that uses the celestial gates to give them great speed and strength, but ours is different. By using special speed training, we brought over from the Lightning Village, we can get rid of the need to use the gates. Yes, but by not using the gates, the two carried on the conversation over speed until Naruto spotted Hanabi walking towards them from the direction of the hospital. Where have you been? You should be in the hospital for a couple of days still. She said. Naruto just sighed. How many times am I going to be told that? I have to think of some way to avoid these people. Lee saw Hanabi and bowed down his waist politely. Hello, you are Neji-kun's cousin, am I not correct? I am Rock Lee. Well, thought Hanabi, it's better than being called Hinata's little sister. Yes I am. You are Neji's team, correct? Yes, I am. Do you know where he is? Guy-sensei and I have been looking for him in Tenten all morning. He is at the manor. Haha, Guy-sensei and I shall make them see the true strength of youth, said the energetic Lee, and he ran towards the Hyuga manor. Having found her team, Hanabi asked them what they had been doing. We were just walking around, said Jacken. Naruto was telling us about his original jutsu he is trying to create. Hanabi was interested in this. Can we see this jutsu of yours? She asked. I mean, after seeing what you did yesterday, I wouldn't mind seeing what kind of just you did it with. Quote. Naruto looked at her. That was the Rasengan. My jutsu is an upgrade on that. Naruto looked both ways. Do you know someplace secluded where I can show you? Kakashi and Yamato already bust me about talking about it. Who knows what they would do if I showed it out here. Hanabi didn't know any were, but Jacken said there were some empty buildings outside the complex where his clan had moved in. The three of them started walking towards it, being led by Jacken. When they got to a part of the village that Naruto did not recognize, he asked Jacken. It used to be the living area of the Uchiha clan. He said, when they were killed there was no one living here. When my family chose to come here, my grandfather bought the land. It was a real shock. Not only that the land was sold, but that my grandfather bought it. My mother had to convince him to even move the clan. She never expected him to actually buy a place where we could settle down our clan. I guess he didn't want the clan to separate, so he chose land where a clan could live together. This is where Itachi did it, said Naruto. This is where Itachi killed his entire family. Why would the Hokage sell a place like this? Who would actually buy it? They were answers he would never learn, though. The third Hokage was long dead. Jacken led them to a small house on the outskirts of the village. When they were all there, he had them move back to the sides of the room. He made several clones. He first showed the Rasengan. Hanabi looked as the blue orb was formed with her Byakugan. She saw the same surging energy inside the small orb. She was actually scared, even if she didn't show it. Naruto picked up the orb and walked over to the wall and shoved the orb onto the wall. He held the orb's form and a perfect circle formed in the wall where he had put it. If I would have let go of it, it would have exploded and taken out the entire wall, he said. Hanabi was not satisfied yet. What about this upgrade you told us about? Naruto looked a little uneasy, as if some were looking over his shoulder and he knew it. I don't know. Come on Naruto, urged Jacken, who also wanted to see the new Rasengan. Naruto, it's not like you will get in trouble for using it. We are on your team and we need to know what you can do, said Hanabi, unless you're afraid to use it. She taunted, an evil grin on her face and a laugh on her voice. Naruto made up his mind. The two young genin had practically made the choice for him. His clones and him made the chakra swirl and twist. They added the wind to it. Hanabi was in awe of the amount of power he was holding in his palm. Through the Byakugan she could see it molding and twist and turn. As it grew in power though it became much more unstable. A blast of wind chakra escaped his grasp and hit a wall, causing the inner layer to cave in towards the outer. It grew even more unstable. Now a lance of chakra would spring loose, then wind. The Byakugan was going haywire, the chakra was everywhere. Hanabi soon lost sight altogether until she turned off the Byakugan. Soon the power exploded like it had so many times before. Naruto's clones disappeared and all 3 genin were thrown against the walls, their backs were too. The wind began to circle around and around, with only one small hole to escape from the force of the wind blew the house they were into bits. Karina was walking from the house that she and her family lived in. She wondered where her son was. Then she heard a great bang and saw debris from one of the empty houses go flying into the air. She ran toward the scene ready to fight. Kakashi, Sai, and Yamato were all standing on the Hokage heads together looking out at the village. Soon they saw a white dust cloud and debris coming from the former Uchiha residence. All 3 of the nin jumped down and began to run towards the area expecting the worst. Tsunade was flipping a coin around reading papers. She failed to catch the coin and it landed on the desk. It had landed on its side. This can't be good, she said to herself. Then she heard a loud banging sound. When Karina had gotten to the site, she saw 2 bodies right near her. She ran forward and realized that one was Jacken. She ran over to her son and looked around, still unsure whether there were enemies around. The other was a young girl she recognized as the daughter of Hiashi Hyuga. A little ways away she saw something move. It was someone walking towards her. It was a boy with blonde hair and blue eyes in orange pants and an orange and black sleeveless shirt. On his left arm was a cast. He obviously wasn't an enemy. Jacken, Hanabi, he said as he came closer. She turned her attention back to her son. She was pretty sure he was just knocked out. He turned to the girl. She was in the same condition. She looked at the boy, who had now sat down on his knees near the 2 genin. What happened here? She asked. They wanted to see my new jutsu I've been developing. He said, it wasn't done yet and I lost control. She looked at him harder now. Jacken and the girl will be alright, but what did this boy do that was this powerful? Karina then realized the presence of 3 more people. She recognized 2 of the people. One was Kakashi Hatake, a powerful Junin. The other was Tenzo, an Anbu captain and her son Sensei. Kakashi talked first. Naruto, what did you do? His one visible eye was opened as wide as it could go. You know you're not supposed to try that jutsu unless Yamato is there. Karina, are those 2 okay? He asked. Yes, they'll be fine. Kakashi, what was that thing? It destroyed the house and sent these children 20 yards at least. It was supposed to be Naruto's secret weapon to use, his own personal jutsu, but it wasn't finished. Yamato, you take Hanabi to the Hyuga manor. Karina, you take care of Jacken. Sai, you stay here and inform anyone who comes asking questions to stay away until I can get Anbu out here. People will try and learn a jutsu from the chakra residue. Naruto, you come with me. Kakashi finished. Naruto and Kakashi made their way towards the Hokage's tower. Kakashi had said nothing to Naruto the entire way. When they got there he told one of the assistants that he had the cause of the explosion determined and entered the Hokage's office. Tsunade was sitting at her desk looking through reports, Sakura and Shizune to either side. Yes Kakashi, is there something I can do for you? We seem to have a small problem. Yes I know, said the Junin, this would be the answer to your problem. He said pushing Naruto forward. He tried to use his new jutsu, one that isn't finished yet. He put his teammates in danger, as well as himself, and all others that were by him. He was also instructed by Yamato and myself not to use it unless Yamato was at hand to hold in the 9 tails. The woman clearly tensed. Naruto. She yelled, do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused me? You were placed on a genin team in order to keep you safe. The elders would have me keep you away, under lock and key. I was able to make concessions to keep you from that. Do you know what it will take for me to do that again? I must keep power in Konoha. The elders and Danzo would have war brought upon Konoha in no time. The woman sighed and moved her hands through her hair. Sakura looked at Naruto. She looked ready to cry but stopped herself by will alone. Shizune's face was like stone. She simply looked at Naruto. Then she spoke up, Tsunade, perhaps there is a way to keep Naruto from such a harsh fate and keep power. If you know a way, then I would gladly hear it. If you sent Naruto, and the rest of Team 7, away to some place where they continue to search for Sasuke and the elders would believe that he was locked away safely. Tsunade sat there thinking for a while. After a good minute she answered, yes, that would work. We will have to leave Yamato here so he can continue leading the Genin team. We will send Jiraiya instead. He has a seal that can suppress the Nine Tails chakra. Sakura, Sai, and you, Kakashi. The 4 of you will be sent to a secluded cottage I have. From there you will search for Sasuke and Orochimaru. Do not move without sending for permission from me first though, I will send you a squad of Anbu to help you if you do find anything. Naruto looked up, at. Hearing this idea, you can't just send me away like that. What about the others and taking the Chunin exams? Naruto, said Tsunade, if by some chance you come back in time to take the exams you will be placed on your team, you won't be replaced. This is for your own good. It will help you find Sasuke. Now go, I must make arrangements. When they had left, Kakashi took Naruto to one of the detention centers. Naruto, Kakashi said, you could have gotten Jakin and Hanabi killed. Do you realize this? Every time you have tried to use that jutsu it has activated the Nine Tails chakra. We will leave Konoha soon, I will pack everything you will need. In 3 days Naruto, Sai, Sakura, Kakashi, and Jiraiya were all on their way to the cottage on the Fire Country's borders. Naruto focused all his power into his right hand. A blue orb formed in the palm of his hand. He swung it from side to side, finally hitting a tree that was near him as hard as he could. Very good Naruto, shouted Jiraiya, we can end for today. The red-clothed shinobi was a little ways away writing in a book. It had been a month and a half since the small group had gone into their exile. Naruto was leaning against the tree trying to free his arm. Jiraiya had looked at what Naruto had already finished of his original jutsu when they arrived. He had ordered Naruto to work on, not only improving his nature manipulation, but also on his current Rasengan. One of Jiraiya's technique was to tie one of Naruto's arms behind his back and make him learn to do the jutsu one-handed, like it was supposed to be done. Jiraiya had not been happy when he was ordered to come out to the secluded cottage. Not only would it hamper his research, he would be unable to gather as much information on Akatsuki. He had chosen to relieve his unhappiness by instructing Naruto in the only way he could think of, harshly. Naruto finally got the arm free and looked at the toad hermit, a growl on his voice, what do you mean we? I've been doing all the work, you just sit there and write in that stupid book all day. Jiraiya looked at the boy, his face in a half snarl. He pointed at the genin and yelled back, if it weren't for you I wouldn't have to be here. I would be out gathering information. I've seen you gather information. Sitting at a bar getting drunk, laying around with women, and ogling women so you can write about them in your boring old books. Hey, my books are great. How would a twerp like you be able to tell the difference? The move and the month and a half had strained the relationship between the master and student. While they had lived together for 2.5 years, there was no one else here most of the time. Naruto was upset that he still couldn't create his jutsu. Naruto had been able to train faster in this past month and a half than he had in the entire 2.5 years he had been gone. In theory he could train his body for the equivalent of 7 years in a single month with his clones. 1,000 clones 30 days 30,000 days worth of training 12 months 2,500 days a month 365 days in a year 6.85 years in 1 month's worth of training. The secret behind his original jutsu seemed to escape him still. When they got back to the medium-sized cottage they had been exiled to, the two separated and went to look for something to do. Sakura, Sai, and Kakashi had been away for the past 2 weeks on a recon mission. As Naruto walked, his thoughts wandered. There is only 2 weeks or less left until Orochimaru will switch his body with Sasuke's. There isn't enough time. Even if we do find where they are hidden, I can't defeat Sasuke or Orochimaru without the Nine Tails. Even if I wanted to use the Nine Tails against Sasuke, he would simply suppress its chakra. The others better get back soon. Naruto was able to better control his chakra than ever before. He could use the Rasengan properly in one hand, his control over wind came nearly naturally. He had never been faster, according to Kakashi, even though he was never able to learn the Hidden Lotus style. Naruto had some kunai made of the same special metal as Asuma's knives, to combat Sasuke's sword. All this together and he still didn't think he would be able to defeat Sasuke. Naruto knew that Sasuke had been training as well, and Sasuke would still be able to use his curse seal. He wondered how strong Sasuke really was. They had seen a portion of what he could do when last they met and he could be even stronger now. Naruto laid down in his cot. He wondered how the others in Konoha were doing, what they were doing. Though he had only been away a month and a half, but it already seemed longer, just like when he left for his training. Naruto was soon roused from his cot by the sound of people entering the cottage. He got up and pulled out a kunai. He left the room and entered the living area. No one was there. He turned to enter the kitchen and he came face to face with an upside-down Kakashi. Naruto gave a yell and fell backwards. The Junin was sticking to the ceiling with chakra. At the sound of the yell, Sakura came running into the room, her fist ready to strike. She saw Naruto on the ground and Kakashi on the ceiling looking at her. "Boys, playing games at a time like this. I just left the room and this happens. Kakashi, come on, stop playing around. Tell Naruto the news already. I'll go get Jiraiya-sama," she said, impatience on her voice. Naruto looked at Kakashi wide-eyed, eager. "News? What did you learn? Hurry, tell me." The young boy was as impatient as ever. Kakashi had been angry at Naruto when he tried to show his jutsu to Hanabi and Jakin. He knew Naruto wouldn't have put their lives in danger on purpose, but to use a jutsu that strong, that wasn't finishes, was just plain stupidity. In addition, Naruto could have released the Nine Tails chakra, like he often did when he tried to use the jutsu and failed. If he had gotten 4 tails, then he could have killed not only his teammates but many others in Konoha. "Be patient, Naruto," said Kakashi in his low monotone's voice. "We have the location of the base where they are. It seems like they have been there for a while, possibly they have chosen to use it as a permanent base of operations. We had captured a sound nin and got some information from him, but he freed himself and took his own life." Soon Jiraiya came in, followed by Sakura and Sai, and Kakashi explained everything that had happened on the mission. Jiraiya took it all in calmly. Naruto took it all in, but the more he talked, the more impatient and anxious Naruto became. When Kakashi finished, Jiraiya looked up at him, then looked around at the different people in the room, finally settling his eyes on Naruto. He gave his head a little nod and stood up. "Well then, it seems we have no time to lose. We can reach the base in a week's time if we pace ourselves. Let's pack up and go." Naruto was ecstatic to hear this and jumped up with a smile on his face. He was soon brought back down by Kakashi. "No. What? Why?" yelled the angry Naruto. Kakashi sighed and looked at Naruto with his eye. "The Hokage said that if we find anything, then we were to send for an ambush squad. We must inform her before we do anything." "Kakashi," said Jiraiya, "we may not have another chance to get to Sasuke and Orochimaru. Who knows if they will stay there or if they will go out and travel from base to base. There is only 2 weeks or less left until the transfer can be completed. We must act now. We cannot, it would be a direct violation of the Hokage's orders. I may want Sasuke back as much as the others, but not at the cost of losing anyone else. Keeping everyone alive is imperative." Jiraiya sighed and walked up to Kakashi and placed his hand on the younger shinobi's shoulder. "Tsunade means well with her order, but we must act now. If we wait for the help to arrive, it will be a week from where we are for the messenger to go to Konoha and bring back the squad. It would be cutting the time limit close. I know Jiraiya-sama, but what can we do? Send back the messenger and have him bring the Anbu straight to the base. We, meanwhile, will proceed towards Orochimaru. That is what we will do." Kakashi looked at the red-clad man. "Very well. But we do this my way. Sai, you will carry the message back to the Hokage and get the Anbu. The rest of us will go to the base. When we're there, we will sneak in." Giving Naruto a good long look. "No one will do anything without my consent." "Agreed. Yes, sir," they all answered while saluting, even Jiraiya, though he sounded sarcastic and his salute was more of a wrist flick with 2 fingers sticking up. In an hour, Sai had left and the rest packed what they would need and left the cottage. They traveled north, out of the Fire Country, for 4 days. They paced themselves and were halfway there by noon. That evening, though, the trouble started. At dusk the group unpacked their gear and set up camp. 3 tents, one for Kakashi, one for Jiraiya and Naruto. It was the largest and they had lived together, and one for Sakura. They had set a small cook fire and hid their spot as best they could in the foreign country. They had, of course, been seen since noon. In the trees half a mile away sat Itachi Uchiha, his Sharingan looking towards the small camp, and down on the ground was the amphibious Kisame Hohigaki. The two had followed the small group since spotting them at noon. It was no more than coincidence really. They had received the location of the Nine Tails from one of their spies and had been on the way to investigate for themselves. It seemed the spy was right. Too bad Kisame killed him. He should have been given a more honorable death. But that was meaningless thought. They would attack as soon as the first one went to sleep. They would feel more at ease knowing one of them could sleep. Kisame would attack the one known as Jiraiya and Itachi would take on the other three. The first one to fall asleep was the silver-haired Jiraiya. Good, it will make it easier for Kisame. After a few minutes they moved out. Kasami started first by flooding the area. This obviously received attention, but Kasami was still not seen. Itachi showed himself though. The sun was setting and the small fire that they had was out now. Naruto looked up at the man with the Sharingan, hate in his eyes. He blames me for his precious Sasuke being with Orochimaru. Itachi laughed at the thought. Kakashi had given out orders, Naruto would be his backup and Kakashi would take on Itachi. Sakura would stay back and strike where she could. Jiraiya was just coming out of the tent he and Naruto were supposed to share, soaked. He looked up at Itachi and started to stand up. Before he could get all the way up though, Kisame struck. He piled down into Jiraiya with both feet, sending the Sannin down to the ground. Sakura tried to go and help high but Itachi got in the way and slapped her back. Now, you'll have more than enough, he said. Kakashi ran forward, the Sharingan revealed and the mask and head protector pulled aside. He had pulled a kunai out and swiped downwards at Itachi. Jumping over Sakura, Itachi pulled out a kunai and blocked Kakashi's strike. Naruto had pulled out 6 shuriken and threw them at Itachi. Itachi pulled out another kunai and blocked all 6 and threw the kunai at Naruto. Naruto dodged the kunai and ran towards Itachi. Itachi gave a little slack in the force of his kunai and kicked Kakashi away. Sakura caught Kakashi and they both ran towards Itachi who had turned on Naruto. Itachi had done the signs for his jutsu then fired a small stream of fire and skimmed Naruto on his right leg. Kakashi did several fast hand signs and sent a great fireball towards Itachi, who in turn did hand seals and disappeared under water and ground alike. Sakura, who had bent over to heal Naruto's leg when Kakashi started his jutsu, wasted no time and punched at the ground full force. The water where she punched went up in a large splash and the ground broke apart, the water now flowing down into the cracks. Itachi had been a short distance away and now jumped up through the ground using his jutsu. As soon as he surfaced he jumped towards Sakura and Naruto, making 6 quick hand seals in midair. He punched his right hand down and sent a shockwave toward the two. Kakashi struck at Itachi as he landed and Itachi was sent sprawling. The shockwave had been sent though and both Naruto and Sakura were pushed towards the trees they had camped near. Kakashi now ran towards Itachi, who had not taken long to get to his feet. Kakashi struck with his left fist which Itachi sidestepped to Kakashi's left side. Seeing him dodge, Kakashi lifted his arm and struck under it with his right palm, following up with a kick with his right leg. Itachi blocked the open palm strike and grabbed Kakashi's leg and threw him at Sakura, who had been running with Naruto back to the fight. Naruto punched at Itachi with an open palm, which Itachi caught. Going with his momentum, Naruto spun around Itachi and elbowed him in the back, causing him to release Naruto's hand. Naruto formed the Rasengan in his right palm as fast as he could and struck out at the Uchiha. Itachi could feel the attack coming and whirled around to Naruto's right side and grabbed the arm with the Rasengan and flung him towards a tree that was nearby. Itachi turned towards the other two, who had gotten to their feet. Kakashi was breathing hard from a piece of wood that had been lying on the ground was stuck between his last 2 ribs. Sakura looked at Itachi, also breathing hard from exhaustion though. She pulled out a kunai and 3 shuriken. She chucked the shuriken and ran towards Itachi as Kakashi tried in vain to stop the headstrong girl. Itachi grabbed the shuriken midair, as if they were just a nuisance, and threw them back at the girl. They hit her in the leg and shoulders, sending the girl down. Kakashi looked at Itachi and prepared to use his Mangekyo Sharingan. He narrowed in the area it would affect an Itachi. Itachi saw this and used his own Sharingan. The two eye attacks fought each other, Itachi's trying to affect Kakashi's mind and stop his jutsu, Kakashi trying to break through this resistance and end the fight once and for all. Finally, though Itachi won, his jutsu affecting Kakashi's mind broke the jutsu and left him vulnerable. Itachi was about to attack Kakashi when he felt a great wind strike him in the side. Jiraiya's battle had started with him face down in the water. Kisame was standing next to him and stomping down on Jiraiya's back. Jiraiya grabbed his other leg and flung the shark man down into the water on his other side. Jumping up, Jiraiya punched down to where the shark man was. Kisame rolled out of the way and stood on one knee, slashed at Jiraiya with his sword, who jumped the attack and ran forwards and hit Kisame in the jaw with a palm strike and followed through with a kick which caused Kisame to burst into a spray of water. The water cloned down, Jiraiya ran away from the other's battle. This fighter used many large area jutsu from what he had heard and didn't want the others to be hit by them. From under the water came a giant explosion of water as Kisame used a water release barrier. Jiraiya was sent flying even farther from the others. Once he had stopped moving, Jiraiya made 7 seals and became transparent. He ran on top of the water, using his chakra to hide his steps. He saw Kisame under the water, looking side to side for any sign of Jiraiya. Jiraiya made several seals and he became visible. He thrust his hand down into the water and a missile of chakra went speeding towards the amphibious individual. Kisame saw this and swam out of the way and towards Jiraiya, his sword swimming at his side. The living sword surfaced first, trying to pierce him and then going back into the water, followed by Kisame who punched him in the back. Jiraiya rolled of the punch and backhanded him on the side of the head. Then kneed the blue man in the stomach. Jiraiya made the hand signs again and punched at Kisame with the glowing hand. Kisame's sword jumped up out of the water again, though and got in between the chakra missile and Kisame, sending both sword and owner flying backwards. Kisame grabbed the hilt of the sword and ran back across the water. He swung the sword downwards and Jiraiya sidestepped it. But instead of coming for another attack, Kisame went underwater and came up under Jiraiya, stabbing at him. Jiraiya dodged and made a seal and then blew a fireball at the water where Kisame was. The blue man came out of the water again, running towards Jiraiya. Right before they clashed, though, a great explosion was heard from the direction of the others. Kisame looked at the Sannin and then went underwater and sped towards the explosion. Jiraiya began to run as well, hoping they were all alright. When Naruto hit the tree, he had a moment of hopelessness. Sasuke has been training for all this time to defeat Itachi. What chance do we stand if even Orochimaru couldn't take him on? Then another thought came to him: if we can defeat Itachi, then we really have a chance. Naruto thought on all of his training in the blink of an eye. He held out his palm and formed the Rasengan. Then he added the wind chakra. The blue orb looked as if it were covered in a larger green orb. He held it, feeling the two forms of chakra together. They were too unstable, he wouldn't be able to hold it much longer and soon it would blow up again. Rather than just let it blow up around him, like it had in the past, he lifted the orb between two hands. As he moved the orb, and ran towards Itachi, the wind and chakra jumped off the orbs, mixing, and going in the wake of the orb's path like a shockwave. When the shockwaves left the orb, it felt easier to control, more natural. Naruto now whirled the orb over his head and more shockwaves came of the orb heading towards Itachi. The first of these shockwaves of wind and chakra hit Itachi. It was like a solid wall hitting him. It knocked him away and cut at his arm. More of these shockwaves hit Itachi, sending him farther and farther away and cutting him more with each hit. When Naruto came within range, he tried to hit Itachi with the orb, only to have him dodge it. He brought the orb around and thrust the orb in a downward arc at Itachi. To stop from getting hit, Itachi jumped backwards. As the orb touched the water, it pushed the water out of the way for at least 3 yards, creating near dry ground. When the orb hit the ground, it created a great explosion pointing away from Naruto. Itachi had avoided being hit by the attack, but was swallowed by the great explosion of chakra and wind that followed. Water and dirt went flying into the air. Once the explosion had ended, dust still clung to the air. Naruto's face was in the dirt, his hands extended before him. He was okay but laid there thinking, unable to comprehend the attack he had just used. He lifted his head and saw a large crater. Water had already begun to fill the bottom, but there was nothing else. He pushed himself up onto all fours, then onto his knees. He looked around. Kakashi and Sakura were behind him, in front of him was the crater, to either side there was water rushing in to fill the hole. A sudden weakness filled Naruto. His arms felt heavy and his back felt like it was on fire. He collapsed down to the ground and landed in Jiraiya's arms. The Sannin had come as soon as he heard the attack. He had no idea what caused it yet, but Itachi was gone and there was a big crater. Naruto's back was cut up pretty badly, nothing that Sakura wouldn't be able to heal, but he was completely exhausted. Jiraiya was surprised that the Nine-Tails chakra hadn't taken control of him during the fight. Jiraiya picked him up carefully and walked towards where Kakashi and Sakura were kneeling. The girl was healing her leg and shoulders, while Kakashi was pulling a piece of wood out from between his ribs. Once the piece was out, she cleaned the wound Kakashi had received with her medical pack, that never left her side, then she healed the wound with her jutsu. When Jiraiya came closer with Naruto, Sakura rushed up to him, putting his head between her hands. "Where's he hurt?" she asked. "His back," said Jiraiya as he gently flipped Naruto over. Some of the smaller cuts had already closed themselves, but the larger ones were still bleeding. Sakura used her jutsu and closed the wounds. Jiraiya asked about Kakashi. "I'm fine," said Kakashi. "My Sharingan protected me somewhat from his genjutsu this time. Let's get Naruto to someplace dry and set up a new camp for the night." The group gathered what stuff it could from its drenched campsite and left, Naruto on Jiraiya's back. Before they left, Jiraiya picked up a Konoha forehead protector with a scratch going through it. Kisame watched as the small group departed. That jutsu would destroy anyone, anything, and it's in the hands of the single most powerful Jinchuriki. How can we get his demon now? We will get it eventually. It may take more than just use though, said Itachi. His cloak was gone and the clothes he wore were soaked in blood, massive cuts covering his entire body. He could feel the foreign chakra act like poison through his body. His arm was around Kisame who was supporting him. "Come on. We must get in contact with some of the others and I must have these wounds healed." "Yeah, you were only caught in it for a few seconds and this is what it did. Imagine if it had hit." That was thought Itachi did not want to consider. When Naruto woke up, he thought he was back in Konoha for a brief second. Then he opened his eyes and was looking up at the sky, a few trees off to one side. He sat up in the blankets that covered him and he was lying on. Up in one of the trees was Jiraiya, keeping watch. Huddled by a small fire was Sakura, looking into the fire. Next to him was Kakashi. Naruto's back had an intense stinging feel to it. When Kakashi saw him, he turned to the Genin and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder before he could get up. "Hold on there. Your back has been healed only an hour or so. You might have the Nine-Tails chakra helping you, but your back will take a day to heal. We don't have time, Kakashi-sensei. Well, you can at least rest through the night. We will start back up in the morning. We will be another 4 days until we get to the base now." Naruto laid back down and gave a little laugh. "I did it, Kakashi-sensei. I was able to use my jutsu." "Well, somewhat," said the Junin. "You really had no control over it, and the backlash from the explosion cut you up pretty badly. But now that you have done it, you can work on it and try to gain more control." Naruto slept through the rest of the night. In the morning, Naruto put on black clothes that Kakashi had. His had been ripped up by the explosion, and the group was back on their way, taking the first day slowly. After that they picked up the pace again. Naruto's back still stung on the first day, but after that the pain began to ebb, and on the 4th day, when they found the base, the pain was gone. The base was a small palace. It had a large stone wall surrounding it. Every 30 yards there was a guard on top of the wall. Kakashi had the group fall back so they could come up with a plan for attack. "Alright, when we captured the Sound Nin last time, he told us of some of the defenses. The wall there is pretty sturdy, but we can sneak in through the sewage lines that run under it. He also told us that no Nin would be missed since they were constantly coming and going. There are apparently many runaways from the stronger Nin. Orochimaru doesn't give them the respect they deserve, so they leave after he gives them some power. The Nin said that Orochimaru and Sasuke had rooms in the top of the palace tower. We will take this pathway and sneak in. Then we will make our way to the top slowly. If you see anything, inform Jiraiya or me." The group walked around the palace wall, unseen, looking for where the sewage was let in and out. When they found it, it was a stone structure with a ledge on either side and a small stream of sewage coming out. The group went in single file along the ledge, first Kakashi, followed by Naruto, then Sakura, and Jiraiya taking up the rear. As they went they tried to keep measure of how far they went. There were periodically ladders that led up and out of the sewers. After slowly measuring out their distance for 10 minutes they climbed a ladder. Kakashi raised the lid slowly, looking around. The room they were in was empty, wooden walls and a sliding door. Kakashi motioned for the others to be quiet. They all came slowly, quietly. When they were all in they closed the lid to the sewer and backed up against the wall. There was noise coming from the other room and Kakashi went by himself to handle it. The rest of the group heard two thumps and then Kakashi stuck his head in the door and motioned them in. On the ground lay two bodies, one a man the other little more than a boy. The two had either been fighting or practicing when Kakashi entered. They proceeded through the small practice room, stepping over the bodies, which had blood coming from the slits on their necks. In the hallway there was not a single sound. The group turned left out of the training room. As they began to turn the corner they never saw Kabuto watching them. Kabuto went quickly and quietly through the halls, straight for Orochimaru's quarters. He entered and saw that Sasuke and Orochimaru were there, talking. Orochimaru turned towards Kabuto. This better be important, we are preparing for the transfer soon. Orochimaru-sama, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Naruto, and Sakura have entered the base. It seems they have come for Sasuke again. Ku, Sasuke laughed, those fools have no idea that I'm not going back with them. Orochimaru, when we do the transfer I will be aware and you will get my revenge. Yes, Sasuke-kun, but this is much more important right now. Sasuke, we will go and meet our guests. Kabuto and I will distract Jiraiya so you can play with your friends. Come let's go. Kakashi and the group had been walking for 20 minutes looking for a way up to the tower. They turned the corner and in front of them, at the end of the hallway, is Sasuke. He looked right at them and let out a laugh, Ku, and then turned and walked down the next hall. The group began to run after him. As they all turned the corner Jiraiya stops. From behind him his name was called. You wouldn't just leave an old friend like me without saying hello first, right? Said Orochimaru. Jiraiya turned back and saw Orochimaru and Kabuto behind him. Orochimaru already had his sword out and Kabuto was taking some soldier's pills. Orochimaru, I haven't seen you in so many years. Said Jiraiya, how am I supposed to remember a face like that? With a little laugh Orochimaru and Kabuto ran forward. Jiraiya blocked a sword swipe with two kunai and kicked Kabuto away with one foot. Pushing up and knocking the sword away from himself, Jiraiya punched at Orochimaru, only to have him bend around the punch and strike back with a left punch. Jiraiya grabbed the arm and threw Orochimaru through the wall to the right. Kabuto was there again and Jiraiya had trouble dodging the attacks in the small corridor. Grabbing Kabuto's arms he pushed the boy against the left wall and prepared to attack when two arms came out of the wall behind him and pulled him through. Jiraiya was pulled through the wall and thrown head first into another. He landed against the wall with a loud bang and an audible creaking of the wood. Jiraiya rolled out of the way as Kabuto struck at him with his fingers extended, no doubt tipped with chakra. He made the proper hand signs and breathed out a great gust of wind, knocking Kabuto away. Orochimaru had made a cut in his hand and was using a summoning jutsu. The giant snake he called came out from under the ground and went after Jiraiya. Seeing the snake in the snug hallway Jiraiya ran the other way. He turned a corner and the snake broke out from the wall. Making hand signs, Jiraiya sent a red missile of chakra sped towards the snake, impaling it. As the snake disappeared Orochimaru slashed at Jiraiya, with an elongated sword. Jiraiya heard the sword break through the wood of the walls and ducked under it. Turning around he headed back to where Orochimaru was and did several hand signs and as he turned the corner blew a great fireball where the traitor had been. The fire hit nothing though, only started small fires in the hall. Jiraiya pulled out his scroll and sealed the fires, the battle apparently over. His body isn't working as it should. We were cutting this short. He went back through the walls and ran to where the others had been. Orochimaru watched his former teammate go. His body had another spasm. After his sword slash his body had collapsed and Kabuto had grabbed him and got him out of there. Kabuto, I must get to Sasuke-kun. I need to change bodies soon. Take me up to my chambers and get Sasuke-kun. Orochimaru ordered. Naruto and the others went chasing after Sasuke and had no idea where he was leading them. They entered a large room with a tiled floor, possibly an arena. Sasuke was standing at the other side, his hand on his sword hilt, protruding out the side of his shoulder. Now we will end this, Naruto, and I will have the eye, he said. Sasuke, yelled Kakashi, listen to reason, you don't need to do this. You don't have to become just another body for Orochimaru. Oh, but I will not be just another body, he said. I will be the ultimate body. The stronger the body is, the longer Orochimaru will be able to hold on to it. His current body is already failing him. My body will last him for decades to come. But this is all pointless. He drew the sword from behind him and made it at the ready in front of him. His eyes now showed the Sharingan's 3 marks and red glow. Moving with the same speed Naruto had seen before he charged in. He stabbed at Kakashi, who spun away from the attack and prepared his Sharingan. Turning his blade, he followed through and sliced at Kakashi, who ducked down and stabbed at Sasuke with a kunai. Sasuke simply used his Chidori Nagashi and paralyzed the Genin. I thought you were better than that, Kakashi. He brought his sword up and prepared to stab down, only to be stopped by Naruto's kunai. I thought you knew you little kunai wouldn't work against my sword. But the kunai was never cut in half. Sasuke jumped away from him and prepared his sword. Naruto charged the 2 kunai, that were in either hand, with wind chakra, creating a longer blade of wind. Sasuke raised his eyebrows at seeing this. Well, it seems you learned a new trick or two. Good, it will make this more interesting. He charged his sword as well and they both ran forwards to confront each other. When the blade of wind met the blade of lightning, charged steel jolts of lightning and flares of wind came off the respective blades, creating loud sounds of thunder. They went back and forth between blocking and attacking, neither blade breaking, neither blade dulling. Sasuke was the faster of the two, but Naruto had his 2 kunai. Finally though, Sasuke knocked away the kunai in his right hand and stabbed at Naruto. Sakura, who had been watching with Kakashi since she bent down to heal him, jumped up and punched Sasuke before the hit could connect. The former Leaf Shinobi went flying into the opposite wall, hitting it hard and tensing from the strength of his hit. His jaw felt loose but intact. He moved away from the wall, a grim look on his face. He slowly walked back to where he had dropped his sword. At this point Jiraiya came into the room, able to find his way by the sound of Naruto and Sasuke's blades. He entered and looked at the boy, a miniature Orochimaru. Why are you doing this, boy? Out of hate for your brother, was it? Jiraiya yelled. He would be truly shocked when he found out they had not told him, your brother is already dead. He yelled, pulling out the headband he had picked up and throwing it to the middle of the arena. Sasuke looked at the headband with the scratch through it. No, he whispered, no, a little louder, no. He yelled with all his voice. His skin crawled with the curse mark, black flames that covered his body. He looked at them and then jumped. He went through the ceiling. From where they were the group could hear him yelling, Orochimaru. With hate and betrayal on his voice. The small group began to run to find out where he went. Wondering what was going to happen, Sasuke burst into the room where Orochimaru was. His body was covered in the black flames of the curse seal. Hurry, boy, we must do it now. Sasuke paid him no heed and lunged at the man, who was in crippling pain. You promised me power to destroy Itachi. You made me believe that he couldn't be destroyed by either you or me yet. But he is already dead, killed by one of those fools I left for you. You lied to me, Orochimaru, and now you will die for it. Sasuke pulled up his sword and prepared to stab at him, only to be kicked away. Orochimaru made several signs and the room seemed to swirl with green. If you won't give me your body, then I'll just take it, yelled Orochimaru. He had started the body transfer jutsu. Sasuke held his head in his hands, feeling the pressure of Orochimaru trying to subdue his consciousness. He looked straight ahead and saw that Orochimaru was still partially in his body. It was standing looking at him, a snarl on his face. Sasuke picked up the sword that had fallen to the ground and stabbed Orochimaru through the heart. The body stopped, gripped at the blade, unable to comprehend that the jutsu was over. Sasuke let go of the hilt, the green swirls still in the room forcing their way into his mind. Once the swirling stopped, Sasuke went down onto his knees, holding his head between his hands, and screaming. He could feel it in his mind, it was cursing him. His body twitched as it tried to take control of his body. Kabuto came into the room and saw Orochimaru's dead body with the sword in the heart. He charged up the chakra into his hands and prepared to kill the screaming Sasuke. Before his hand could connect though, Sasuke turned around and grabbed his arm. Kabuto, don't you dare, you fool. I have his body, let's go. He said, struggling to get the words out. Yes, Orochimaru-sama, said Kabuto, helping him to his feet and half carried him. As they went, Orochimaru at times looked at Kabuto and threw him down and just stared down at him. Then he would collapse again and would need Kabuto to hold him up. They ran, coming across Shinobi. Orochimaru gave out orders to abandon the base and set off the explosives under it. Their base had been found and infiltrated. The shinobi began to evacuate the building. One was ordered to set off the explosives. Do you think this is wise, Orochimaru-sama? We can just as easily defend the base. Do it, Kabuto. We will bring the base down around Jiraiya and Naruto, and destroy all of the research, so no one will ever find it. Very well. The pair escaped, heading north out of the country. As they had their last look of the base, it blew up. Orochimaru had Sasuke's body and couldn't care what was in the base. Naruto and the rest had started to run as well, looking for a way to follow Sasuke. They had managed to get up the hole in the ceiling but had lost Sasuke. They searched for a while until they heard the sound of feet running towards them. They were all sound nin. But instead of attacking them, they kept on running. Something was happening. They kept running until Sakura saw something and called to the rest. They entered the room and saw Orochimaru dead on the floor, his heart pierced by Sasuke's sword. Jiraiya looked in and saw the sight. He walked up to the body and checked it. He's dead. He said, our job is done, let's get out. The small group went back the way they came, went back down the hole. They came to the spot where Jiraiya and Orochimaru had fought and realized the path had been blocked. They went through the holes in the walls and broke through others until they were finally outside. When they made it outside, the first of the explosions started. They ran up the wall as fires began to swallow the base. They jumped away and kept going. They stopped for a night about 4 miles away from where the base had been. That night they talked about what they would do. We have to go back to Konoha, said Naruto. The Hokage should know what happened. Naruto, what about Sai and the Anbu squad on their way? We should wait and meet up with them, said Jiraiya. Besides, you're supposed to be locked away, remember? But we can't just stay here, it will be another 6 days until Sai reaches us, said Sakura. Excuse me, said Kakashi, but when we agreed to leave before the Anbu arrived, you all agreed to follow my orders. We will go back to the cottage. When Sai gets them to the base and they see it, they will send someone back there. We might even meet them on the way. Kakashi had taken hold of the situation again. They proceeded back to the cottage in the morning. They traveled for 7 days, and indeed meet up with Sai on the 3rd day. The Anbu captain they had sent had a message for the group. They were to return to Konoha to give a full report if they had already proceeded to the base. According to Sai, the Hokage had not been happy to learn they had disobeyed her orders. After stopping in at the cottage to gather what they needed, the group prepared to return to Konoha. 4 days later they had finally returned home. Hope you guys enjoy first part of this story. Do like, share and subscribe.